My name is Jiang Qingyue. I run a seafood shop called Fish Full Warehouse. People call me Jiang One Knife because I kill thousands of fish and shrimp every year. 3 days ago, something strange happened. My neighbor Wang Dawei came to my shop early in the morning and handed me a huge order list. He wanted all kinds of seafood, cleaned, deboned, and vacuum packed. He even ordered expensive stuff like lobster, which he never buys. Wang Dawei is the cheapest guy I know. He usually sits around waiting for fish to die so he can pay the dead fish price. But today he didn't argue about the price at all. He just said to deliver everything to his place by noon. I spent the whole morning preparing his order and drove it over on my tricycle. When I got there, a meat seller was also delivering basically a whole pig's worth of meat. Wang Dawei's wife came out and explained they were going back to their hometown to throw a banquet, 20 tables. She told us to just leave everything in the living room, but something felt off. While I was carrying stuff inside, I noticed their bedroom door was slightly open. Instead of a bed, I saw stacks and stacks of paper, neatly arranged. That was weird. It's just the two of them, no kids. Why would they need that much? Later, I stood on my balcony and saw Wang Dawei jogging around the neighborhood. I've known this guy for over 10 years. He has a big beer belly and has never exercised a day in his life. Why would he suddenly start running? I love reading novels, especially apocalypse stories. Wang Dawei's strange behavior instantly reminded me of those stories where the main character gets reborn and starts preparing for the end of the world. My heart started pounding. I ran to my late parents' room, grabbed their old binoculars, and went back to the window. I pulled the curtains almost shut, leaving just a small gap, and watched Wang Dawei like some creepy stalker. After his run, he sat down on a flower bed and pulled out his phone. Through the binoculars, I could clearly see him opening one loan app after another, pulling out every bit of credit he could get. He didn't check the interest rates or the amounts. He just took everything available. That look in his eyes, determined and full of hate, that's not something you see on a normal person. I was now 99% sure Wang Dawei was a reborn person. The remaining 1%, I'd confirm the next morning. I couldn't sleep that night. At 5 in the morning, I grabbed the binoculars and went to my laundry room balcony, which faces Wang Dawei's building. I waited for over 2 hours. At 7, Wang Dawei came out with an empty backpack and left alone. By noon, he came back with the backpack stuffed full. His wife never left the house. The meat and seafood from yesterday never came back out either. Then the curtains were pulled shut. So the banquet story was a lie. Everything pointed to one answer. Wang Dawei was reborn, and he was preparing for an apocalypse. But what kind? Extreme heat? Extreme cold? Zombies? I checked global weather reports on my phone, but couldn't find anything unusual. Of course not. If the National Weather Bureau couldn't spot it, how could I? Then 2 small trucks pulled into the neighborhood and stopped at Wang Dawei's building. Through my binoculars, I watched delivery guys carry in 6 huge commercial freezers, the kind stores use, not regular home fridges. My seafood shop only has 2 of those. Obviously, he needed them to store all that meat and seafood. I started thinking, Wang Dawei believes it's safe to stay home during the early days of the apocalypse. Or maybe he's just freezing everything temporarily and has some way to move it later, like some kind of storage equipment. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my phone and called a real estate agent. I needed money, as much as possible. The house could be sold. I'd rent somewhere. But I had to start stockpiling supplies. My parents are gone. I'm alone. If I'm wrong, the worst that happens is I go from comfortable to broke. I can deliver food to survive. But if I'm right, I'll have what I need to stay alive. The agent came, took photos, and appraised the place. Houses in our neighborhood sell for about 1.2 million yuan. I listed mine for 800,000 and told them I needed the money urgently for medical bills. I just wanted it sold fast because I had no idea how much time was left, maybe a year, maybe a month, maybe tomorrow. That evening I watched a delivery girl bring Wang Dawei 2 cases of canned food, 2 cases of congee, and a case of sausages. He tipped her generously. I wrote it all down in my little notebook. The next morning, Wang Dawei left early. I disguised myself in my mother's old clothes, put on a sun hat and a mask, and looked like a 50-year-old woman. I followed him from a distance. He ate breakfast, then went into a gym. I waited in a dessert shop across the street for 2 hours. When he came out, I went in and paid 300 yuan to get the information I needed. He bought a 1-month membership. That calmed me down a lot. It meant the apocalypse wasn't coming in the next 2 or 3 days. If it were, there'd be no point in buying a gym card. Over the next few days, I watched everything Wang Dawei did and wrote it all in my notebook. He bought sausages. I'd buy 10 times more. He bought 2 big bags of vitamin supplements, which made me nervous. That meant the apocalypse would cut off things like vegetables. He bought meat, seafood, canned goods. I multiplied everything by 10. Then I saw him go into a clothing store. After he left, I went in and saw the store was having a clearance sale on winter gear, fur coats, down jackets, thick padded coats, mountain parkas. So it was an extreme cold apocalypse. I immediately started listing cold weather supplies in my notebook. Wang Dawei also stockpiled water, bottled water, jugs, even big barrels to fill with tap water. I didn't understand why an ice apocalypse would mean a water shortage, but I copied him anyway and multiplied the amount by more than 10. What confused me was the gas mask and the antiviral and anti-infection medicine he bought. The medicine made sense. Extreme cold means more sickness. But a gas mask? Maybe there would also be some kind of zombie virus on top of the freezing weather? I didn't understand it, but I bought double of everything he got. For 3 days straight, Wang Dawei's wife organized supplies at home while he kept bringing more stuff in, sometimes through the front door, sometimes through the garage, sometimes through the back entrance, always when most people were at work or school. Almost nobody noticed. Nobody except me. After 3 days, Wang Dawei stopped buying supplies and started taking his wife to the gym. They spent nearly the whole day there. That's when I stopped watching. My house had sold. The money came through.
It was time for me to start stockpiling.
I made my own supply list and learned from my mistakes watching Wang Dawei. If I could figure out he was a reborn person just by watching his behavior, someone else could figure me out the same way. So I'd buy in small batches from different places and never anywhere near my neighborhood where everyone knows me. I also couldn't store things at my apartment. I live on the 13th floor. If the elevators stop working after the apocalypse, that's a problem. Plus, my neighborhood has about 40,000 people. If they all turned into zombies, just thinking about it gave me goosebumps. I needed a different place. And I thought of the shelter my dad once took me to. My dad was a seafood shop owner, but he loved outdoor adventures. Since Mom had to watch the shop, he'd take me along on his trips whenever I was on school break. We mostly explored around the city, since having a kid slowed him down. For a while, he got obsessed with building a doomsday shelter. We didn't have the money to do it properly at home, so he found a hidden spot in the hills and dug out a small shelter by hand. I went there with him several times as a kid. After I left for college, I never went back, but I still remembered where it was. One morning, I put on my raincoat and boots and headed out in heavy rain. I rode my tricycle to the outskirts, then hiked into the hills. The area around Quanshui City is full of rolling hills with barely any flat land. Before long, I found the path from my memory. The shelter was completely overgrown. It had blended into the surroundings so well that I had to dig through dead leaves and branches just to find the rusty old lock. I pulled out the key I'd found the night before among Dad's belongings. Click, the old copper lock opened. I pushed open the steel door. Dad had disguised it with grass and dirt on top. Unless you got close and touched it, you'd never know it was there. I waited at the entrance to let fresh air in, then crawled inside with my flashlight. Everything was the same as before. Basic climbing gear, a tent, a thermal blanket, some expired compressed biscuits, and a few bottles of water that were 3 years past their date. Dad used to swap the water out regularly, but after he died, nobody came back. The problem was obvious. This place was way too small. I pulled out my supply list and did some rough math. The shelter couldn't hold even half of what I needed, but I couldn't cut anything. Wang Dawei's purchases told me food and water were the most important things. I couldn't reduce those. He also hadn't bought any weapons, but I believed weapons were essential. Whether it was zombies or extreme cold, things would get chaotic, and a physically weak woman like me needed something with stopping power. I also needed heating equipment and a generator. I didn't know how cold it would get. Minus 20 degrees, I could survive with clothes and blankets. But minus 50? Not a chance. Since I couldn't reduce anything, I had to expand. I could dig outward and downward. But for secrecy, I had to do it all by myself. No hiring workers, or the shelter would become a death trap instead of a safe haven. I'm a woman of action. Once I decided, I didn't hesitate. I moved everything from home into the shelter and started digging. My routine became strict. Every morning I dug. First, I'd carefully remove the grass layer from where I planned to dump dirt, saving it to cover the fresh soil later for camouflage. It didn't need to be perfect, just enough that nobody would notice from a distance. In the afternoons, I went shopping. Small amounts from different stores, never enough to look suspicious. Sometimes I'd change clothes, put on a wig, switch up my appearance. I kept checking the news for weather changes, but found nothing unusual. Like an ant-moving house, I slowly built up my supplies. Clothes, blankets, canned food, and water went in first, since they didn't need to stay fresh. Meat and seafood I bought in large quantities too, but since there wasn't room in the shelter yet, I stored them at my shop. My 2 old freezers weren't enough, so I bought 5 more secondhand ones, 7 big freezers, all packed full. I also added things Wang Dawei hadn't bought: dehydrated vegetables and pickled cabbage. A regular customer came by asking why I hadn't opened the shop in so long. I told her I'd had a small surgery and needed rest. Then I went weapon shopping. After looking around, I realized there wasn't much I could legally buy that had real stopping power. I got a machete, a chainsaw, and a legal stun baton. Everything available. I bought gas masks, basic medicine, cold pills, stomach medicine, bandages, disinfectant, and painkillers for my period. I spread the purchases across different pharmacies. Hygiene supplies, too. Remembering the wall of toilet paper at Wang Dawei's place, I bought plenty of my own. And sanitary pads. Who knows if those would exist after the apocalypse? Then a terrible thought hit me. What if there were zombies on top of the extreme cold? Zombies have sharp noses. If they smelled blood during my period, I'd basically be walking monk's flesh. Everyone would want a piece. My face went pale just thinking about it. I immediately went and bought a ton of tampons instead. Unlike pads, tampons don't leak any smell if you change them frequently. I ran my fingers through my long hair. I'd kept it long my whole life. Mom always braided it for me no matter how busy she was, and even after she passed, I kept taking care of it. But I went to the barber anyway. I walked out with a buzz cut. I'd wanted to shave it completely bald, but the barber talked me out of it, so I compromised. I also bought electric clippers so I could maintain it myself later. Every day felt like the last day before the end. Every morning, the first thing I did was check my phone. Did I still have signal? Were there any news about cooling or apocalypse? But everything stayed calm and normal. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I booked a hotel room across from my old neighborhood and pulled out the binoculars. Wang Dawei's first-floor apartment had been modified. His little garden used to mean no security bars on the windows. Now there were thick, solid steel bars welded over every window, not the hollow stainless steel kind, but thumb-thick solid rods, brutally welded shut. I couldn't see the door from my angle, so I didn't know if he'd reinforced that too. I thought about my own shelter. I couldn't fortify it the same way. That would require a construction crew and heavy equipment, which would give away the location. But Dad's shelter had one big advantage. It was hidden. As long as I stayed put and didn't go wandering around, nobody would bother going to that barren little hilltop. It's not a supermarket or a factory. There's nothing there worth taking. From that day on, I stopped watching Wang Dawei and focused entirely on expanding the shelter. Every time I dug out more space, I filled it with supplies. Diesel, gasoline, coal, a generator. Dad's old battery-powered lamp barely lit the place, so I bought rolls of electrical wire, ran lines from the ceiling, and installed a few small light bulbs. Afraid they'd burn out with no way to replace them, I bought an entire box of spare bulbs, enough to last me a lifetime. June 13th. While I was still digging, I got several text messages reminding me to make loan payments. Pay what? I'd spent every last cent. I hadn't had money to buy anything for days. Luckily, I'd already purchased everything I could think of. Now, the main job was just making the shelter bigger, so I could fit in the freezers from the shop, or at least all the frozen food inside them. Once the ice age hit, freezers would be pointless anyway. I ignored the messages and kept digging. To prevent cave-ins, I expanded a little bit on each side and dug a little deeper each time. The shelter used to be so low that Dad had to crouch. Now it was tall enough to stand in. At my height of 165, walking around was no problem. The next day, June 14th, my payment due date, I built a simple bed from wood planks and bricks, laid out soft bedding on top. Finally, no more sleeping on the ground. June 15th. Since I hadn't paid, my phone blew up with calls. I turned it off and tossed it aside. I had no close friends, no family I kept in touch with, and zero money left on my phone. It was basically a brick. I dragged a bag of fresh dirt outside, and suddenly, crack, crack, crack. Hailstones the size of thumbs started falling, like the sky was raining rock candy. They're huge. I ran back to the shelter. In just those few steps, the hail hit my arms and forehead hard enough to raise bumps. Standing at the shelter entrance, I looked out. The hail wasn't stopping. It was getting bigger.
This isn't right.
Hail shouldn't last this long, and it's June. I turned my phone back on and checked the weather for Quanshui City. In all of recorded history, there had never been hail or snow here in June. This abnormal weather had to be connected to the apocalypse. And just in those few seconds with the phone on, I could already feel the cold. I was wearing a t-shirt and had been sweating from hard labor. I shouldn't have felt cold even in hail. All in, I threw on thick clothes, put on a mask and hard hat, and sprinted to my tricycle on the roadside. Hail pounded the metal bed of the tricycle with a terrible noise, but I didn't care. I drove as fast as I could to the seafood shop. The streets were empty, nobody was out in this. Most shops had their doors shut to keep the hail from bouncing in. I opened the shop and started hauling. The big freezers were too heavy for me to move alone, so I just grabbed everything inside, frozen seafood, beef, lamb, pork, and threw it all onto the tricycle. What didn't fit, I stuffed into big bags, tied them down with rope, stacked everything high, and threw a tarp over it. Then I rode toward the outskirts without looking back. The hail kept getting worse. The stones were now the size of a baby's fist. Even through my high-quality hard hat, every hit made my head spin. My thighs were in agony. But I didn't stop. I made it to the roadside, then hauled the frozen food into the shelter load by load. I lost count of how many trips I made. When I finally carried in the last piece of meat, I had no strength left to even lift my arms. I collapsed on the ground, starving, exhausted, in pain everywhere, shaking all over. With trembling hands, I grabbed a bottle of nutrient drink that I'd never allowed myself before because I was watching my figure. I chugged the whole thing in one go and felt a tiny bit of energy return. I dragged myself to the shelter entrance and looked out. The hailstones had grown from baby fists to adult fists, big as apples, smashing deep craters into the dirt. I slammed the door shut and checked my phone. The internet and local government channels were everywhere issuing red hail warnings. Domestic, international, everyone was talking about it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. It was a debt collector. "Are you serious right now?" I said. "Don't you see the hail outside? I'm inside a building. Hail can't touch me. You missed your payment. You know that, right? I've got no money. Take my life if you want." I hung up and waited, growing more anxious by the minute. It was getting colder and colder. I pulled out the thermometer I'd bought. In the middle of June, it read 13 degrees. A little later, it dropped to 9. Within minutes, it hit below 0. I had just worked up a full-body sweat, but the temperature kept dropping, so I had to pull out my new padded winter clothes and put them on. The hailstorm lasted over 3 hours. When it finally stopped, the ground outside was covered in white. Not snow, but round hailstones smooth as river pebbles. My thermometer read -23 degrees. I opened my phone. The internet had gone crazy. The hail had been devastating, massive power outages everywhere. While scrolling through all the shock and panic, I came across a video from someone I knew, Wang Dawei. He'd posted a video of himself. His face was still round, but noticeably thinner than a month ago. The video was short. He said he had a gut feeling the apocalypse was coming and urged everyone to stock up on food, water, and warm clothes. Tons of people online were saying the same thing, and Wang Dawei had almost no followers, so nobody paid attention. I only saw it because we were in the same city, but something bugged me. He claimed it was just a feeling, yet he listed exactly the things he'd been stockpiling for weeks: warm clothes, food, and water.
Why post this now?
Before I could figure it out, a glowing panel the size of a tablet appeared in front of me. At the same time, a booming voice echoed from the sky. "Welcome, all inhabitants of Blue Star, to the extreme cold apocalypse. The first cold wave has arrived. The next cold wave comes in 7 days. Good luck." The world went silent for a few seconds. The panel had a world chat channel, and it was flooding with messages so fast I couldn't read any of them. I switched to the Quanshui City Regional Channel. Still packed with messages, mostly people worrying about the future or marveling at the apocalypse system. I couldn't believe it. The apocalypse had literally just started, and instead of studying the panel's features or rushing out to grab supplies, people were sitting around chatting and complaining. Everyone was experiencing this for the first time. What was there to even discuss? I ignored the chatter and checked my phone. Wang Dawei had posted a second video. "See? My gut feeling was right. If you believe me, stop chatting. You can study the panel anytime, but supplies might not be available later. Money could become worthless at any moment." This time, people who'd seen his first video went wild. They called him a prophet, a genius, begged him to lead them. I started to understand his plan. He was repackaging his rebirth knowledge as a psychic ability to predict the future. Pretty smart, actually. It took me a while to figure out why. If he admitted he was reborn but had kept the information to himself, people would hate him. Plus, a reborn person only knows what happened during their first life. If he died in year 2, he'd know nothing about year 3. But someone who can see the future? That person is always valuable. That one ability alone could rally people around him. I plugged in my phone to charge and got up to make food. I set a small pot on the stove, dropped in a hot pot seasoning brick, added water, mushrooms, and enoki. Once it boiled, I threw in the fresh vegetables and beef, the stuff that wouldn't last. I ate while watching the panel. The chat had quieted down. Only a message here and there. Everyone had finally realized supplies mattered and gone scrambling. A few people were still posting, but they were the ones who didn't need to worry. One guy bragged about his doomsday bunker. Another said he'd stockpiled 10 years of food in the deep mountains. Someone else owned a supermarket and had locked it down the moment the hail got bad. Now he was welding the doors shut. Of course, I thought, sipping my soup. The only people chatting right now are the ones who already have enough. I rubbed my stomach. Only 70% full. Before all this, I would have stopped there to keep my figure.
Now?
Forget my figure. I wanted to be strong. I got up, added half a bowl of shrimp and a flatbread to the pot and cooked it all. Noodles, shrimp, soup, everything went into my belly. Looking at the empty pot, I hesitated for 1 second, then grabbed a piece of paper and wiped the pot and chopsticks clean. No washing, save water. Full and warm, I crawled into my bed and burrowed under the blanket to think about what came next. I was lucky. I'd bet right. Outside, the ground was covered in hailstones. Cars were useless. Supermarkets had locked their doors and refused to sell. Even if you had money, you couldn't buy anything. Even if you could buy something, carrying it home on that icy, slippery mess of hailstones was nearly impossible. Every step could send you crashing down. But I couldn't relax either. The second cold wave was coming in 7 days. I had enough supplies to last many rounds of 7 days, but supplies weren't the only problem. It was already minus 20-something. After the second wave, how cold would it get? I looked around my little shelter. Dark, damp. Even in my padded clothes under a blanket, I was still cold. The air circulation was poor, so burning coal for heat had to be done carefully. I had electric heaters too, but those needed the generator, which burned fuel, and fuel was limited. Still not enough, I sighed. I spent some time studying the panel more carefully. The result was disappointing. It was basically just a chat system, a world channel and city channels. No storage function, no trading marketplace, nothing that could make us stronger. It existed purely for people to vent. I checked Wang Daoi's account again. Nothing new. I can't just lie here. I reluctantly crawled out of my warm blanket. I just gotten it heated up. 2.
Glovis hat Pickaxe.
Back to digging. The bigger the shelter, the better. Once I carved out more space, I'd go chop trees and stack wood inside. The wood would serve triple duty: structural support, firewood, and exercise. Years of killing fish had given me some arm muscle, but it wasn't enough. Jiang One Knife was offline. Jiang the Miner was online. My mining skills were amateur, but my willpower was decent. I spent the entire afternoon digging out 13 bags of dirt. I couldn't dump them outside because hailstones would roll in every time I opened the door, so I stacked the bags against the wall to deal with later. This was absolutely not work meant for humans. I rubbed my aching shoulders and decided to make dinner. Same pot from this morning. Wiped, not washed. Same spicy hot pot base. Different ingredients this time: bean sprouts, lettuce, seaweed, beef, a chicken leg, and a flatbread. A full pot. I picked up my chopsticks, grabbed a crisp piece of lettuce, and just before it reached my mouth, my phone rang.
Who would call me?
It was an unknown number. I was too focused on my food, so I just swiped to answer and sat back down. I picked up a slice of beef, blew on it, and popped it in my mouth. Silence on the other end. Hello. Just when I thought it was a bad connection, the most annoying voice in the world came through. Qingyue, it's me. Yi Hongyu. My face went sour instantly. What terrible luck, getting a call from this piece of garbage while I was eating. Qingyue, I'll skip the pleasantries. You know the situation. Extreme cold apocalypse. Everything's a mess out there. I went out to buy supplies, but every store has jacked up prices. Some won't even take cash, they want gold. Most supermarkets just locked their doors. You can't buy anything even with money. It's freezing out here. I came out in shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm about to die from the cold. I'm standing right by your seafood shop. Come, open up. I couldn't get anything else, so let me at least grab some fish and shrimp to take home. Otherwise, I'll go hungry tonight. I almost choked. I'd underestimated just how shameless this man could be.
Wrong number, I said.
I'm not Jiang Qingyue. My surname is Gu, and my full name is Gu Nainai, which basically means your grandma. I hung up and went back to my food. The beef was local yellow cattle, sliced paper thin with my expert knife skills. On a freezing day like this, paired with that numbing, spicy broth, it was so good I could have swallowed my own tongue. And the fresh lettuce, enjoy it now because seeing anything green in the future would be harder than reaching the sky. The phone rang again.
Yi Hongyu.
Are you kidding me? Give it a rest. I wanted to turn off my phone but was afraid I'd miss any updates about Wang Daoi. So I just blocked the number manually. Actually, I'd done this exact thing years ago. Back then, I just graduated and landed a good job at a big company. Yi Hongyu had a good job too. We'd been together since college and planned to get married once we settled into our careers. But before any wedding, I got the worst news of my life. My parents were in a car accident. Both had to have limbs amputated. I quit my promising job and moved back to Quanshui City, this small third-tier town, to run the family seafood shop. I needed to earn money and be close enough to take care of them. Yi Hongyu lost it. He fought me hard on it. Qingyue, don't be impulsive. Your parents just lost their limbs. Their hands still work. It's not like they're paralyzed or in a coma. You don't have to worry about a caretaker mistreating them. If that happens, they can call you. You spent all those years studying, graduated from a top university, and now you're going back to a third-tier city? Are you really okay with that? What kind of decent job can you even find there? Work at your family's fish shop? Be a fish killer? If my friends and relatives find out my girlfriend kills fish for a living, they'll laugh me out of the room. And long-distance relationships never work out. Am I supposed to give up my career and follow you to some nowhere city to live a pathetic life? I told him calmly. I never asked you to come with me. My parents don't need a nanny. They need family. The seafood shop actually earns more than my salary. If you can't accept this, let's just break up. He was stunned, then exploded. Why should we break up? You're my girlfriend. We're supposed to get married. A husband-wife relationship is closer than parent-child. You should prioritize me. If you go back to Kwanshui City, who's going to split rent with me? Who's going to cook and do laundry? Who's going to sleep with me? Disgusting. Every time I remembered those words, I felt sick. We'd been together since college. My parents had actually liked him. They figured a boy from school had to be more sincere than some sleazy older guy from the real world. When the accident happened, they'd even tried to reassure him. They said they had savings, the surgery was covered, they weren't in debt. The shop was doing well. After the initial recovery period, they'd both be in wheelchairs and mostly independent. No 24-hour care needed. No burden on anyone. Neither my parents nor I ever once asked Yi Hongyu to quit his job, move to Kwanshui City, or spend a single cent. If he'd just been honest and said, "I don't want a long-distance relationship, your family situation is too much, let's break up," I would have understood. Adult love is practical, and marriage even more so. But he didn't want to break up. He wanted to force me to abandon my parents, stay in the big city, keep my fancy job, cook his meals, do his laundry, and warm his bed. He was pure trash. Back then, I didn't hesitate for a second. I moved out of our shared apartment, packed my things, blocked his number, bought a plane ticket, and flew home that same night. I thought that chapter was long closed. But this garbage had kept my number all these years. What a mistake. Years later, and he was still finding ways to make me sick. I wiped the pot with a piece of paper again. After all that hard work and a full meal, my eyes got heavy. But I only let myself doze for 10 minutes before getting up and opening the shelter door. Just as I expected, a pile of big hailstones rolled inside the moment I opened it. I put on gloves, grabbed a bucket, and started picking them up one by one, carrying them outside. It was brutally cold. Even wrapped in thick clothes, I shivered. Kwanshui City rarely ever dropped below zero. The coldest we'd ever gotten was -8. Now, at -20-something, this was extreme for a local like me. Cold or not, the work has to get done. I kept pumping myself up while clearing the hailstones away from the door. At this temperature, they'd never melt. If I didn't move them now, they'd freeze together into a solid wall and seal the shelter shut. My lips turned purple. My ears went numb. I lost count of how many trips I made, but I finally cleared the area around the shelter. To keep things hidden, I left a thin layer of hailstones on the ground so it would look the same as everything around it from a distance. The pile of fresh dirt I dug out was now buried under hailstones too, looking just like a natural little mound. Saved me the trouble of camouflaging it. Back inside, I shut the door, changed out of my sweat-soaked clothes, and put on dry thermal underwear, then layered up with a faux fur coat. I poured hot water from an old thermos, tore open a packet of instant coffee, and sipped while scrolling through my phone. People online were losing it. Supermarkets were all closed. One person said they only had a few packs of instant noodles at home. Another complained that stores had raised prices tenfold and only accepted cash, no transfers. Someone else said their area wouldn't even take cash, only gold. Others reported supermarkets had welded their doors shut. One post made my stomach turn. Is anyone going to do something? My family never cooks at home. All we have is a bag of snacks. If we can't buy supplies, we'll be forced to do bad things. The more I scrolled, the more serious my face got. Compared to yesterday's chatter about the weather and the apocalypse, now everything was about supplies, food, water, and warm clothes. Warm clothes were manageable. People could layer thin ones, wrap themselves in blankets, or dig out their winter stuff. But food and water? That was a real crisis. These days, even families who cook buy fresh ingredients daily. Nobody stores more than a week's worth of food. Water was even worse. Aside from a few bottles or a water cooler jug, nobody keeps water reserves. Now, with temperatures at -20-something, the pipes had frozen. No tap water. The bottled water at home might last 2 days at most. Most areas had lost power too. If you had a gas canister, you could at least melt hailstones into drinking water, but one canister doesn't last long. And young people who never cooked or kept a stove, they were panicking. While reading, an unknown number called. My hand almost answered out of habit, but I stopped myself. I had no calls I absolutely needed to take. This was either a debt collector or Yi Hongyu using a different number. I swiped left to reject and blocked it. Seconds later, a text popped up from yet another unknown number. Baby, ching ching, I'm really about to freeze to death. It's minus 20-something, and I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Forget our years together. Even if we were strangers, would you really let a living person freeze to death at your doorstep? Before I finished reading, a second message arrived. Jiang Qingyue, I have photos of you from before. The kind where you're wearing nothing. Open the door and give me some supplies, or, I swear, before I freeze to death, I'll post every single one of those photos online. To prove he wasn't bluffing, he sent 2 photos. A flash of pale skin filled my screen before I could look away. I recognized the angle. It was our old rental apartment. He'd taken them without me knowing. Secretly. Like a creep. What is wrong with you? I blocked that number too. Now I regretted not changing my phone number years ago. I never thought this garbage would still be haunting me. I finished my coffee, poured a splash of hot water into the cup, swirled it around, and drank it down. Perfect, no washing needed. The shelter was cold and damp, so I dragged out the tin stove. Since I was going to sleep and ventilation was poor, I didn't dare burn regular coal. Carbon monoxide poisoning was too risky. Instead, I lit some smokeless charcoal. It was more expensive and I hadn't bought much, so I only used it at night. The shelter was small and packed with supplies, so one little stove was enough. After a while, I checked the thermometer. -9. Not great, but in thick clothes under heavy blankets I could sleep. I burrowed into my blanket and didn't open my eyes until morning. First thing I did wasn't wash my face or eat. I grabbed my phone and checked Wang Daoi's account. He'd posted another video. In it, he and his wife were wearing light clothes, sitting around a stove with a big pot of spicy hot pot. Fresh lettuce, spinach, paper-thin slices of beef and fish, meatballs. The 2 of them were eating happily, sweating from the heat. They didn't say a single word. The comments section exploded. People begged him to take them in, asked where he lived, offered to clean his house in exchange for food. Others asked what would happen next. It was overwhelming. He's really not holding back, I thought, doing some mental math. Even though I hadn't watched Wang Dawei for the past 2 weeks, based on what he'd bought before, if they ate like this every day, their supplies wouldn't last long. Half a year at most. But he showed no sign of rationing. Did that mean things would change after 6 months? That they just needed to survive until then? I couldn't figure it out. I browsed more messages. Same as yesterday, everyone struggling for supplies. Some were forming groups to go buy things together. Mixed in with all the desperate messages, I noticed people saying their phones had died and their homes had no power to charge them, so they'd communicate through the system panel from now on. I also noticed that online, fewer people were active on their phones. Many had switched to the floating panel that had appeared out of nowhere. I could only see 2 channels, the World Channel and Quanshui City's regional channel. The World Channel was similar to this morning. I opened the regional channel and hadn't scrolled 2 lines before my face went dark with rage. Yi Hongyu had posted a long essay. Everyone, my name is Yi Hongyu. I'm Jiang Qingyue's boyfriend. He started from our college days. The story sounded plain enough, but he'd twisted everything. In his version, when my parents got sick and I came back to Quanshui City to run the seafood shop, business was bad and money was tight. He claimed he worked hard and sent me money every single month. Then he said I still wasn't satisfied. Life was too hard for me, so I used my looks to find a rich older man. Once I had a comfortable life, I dumped my loyal, money-sending boyfriend. At the end, he posted my phone number, my home address in the neighborhood, and my shop's address. And he made sure to add one final detail. The seafood shop was full of supplies. His intentions were as vicious as they were obvious. When I first saw Yi Hongyu's post, I got angry. But then I caught myself. Times had changed. Before the apocalypse, his dirty tricks could have seriously hurt me. Even if I won a lawsuit, I was a businesswoman. With how fast gossip spreads online, the drama alone could have killed my business. Going to court would mean closing the shop and losing money.
But now?
0 damage.
Who cares?
Once I thought it through, I didn't even bother responding. No defending myself, no arguing back. I scrolled past his nonsense without a ripple of emotion. I picked up my phone and checked on Wang Dawei instead. He'd posted another video, him and his wife exercising barefoot on a thick carpet in their living room. The camera wasn't focused on supplies, but you could see every corner of the room was packed with stuff. No words, just the workout video. I thought about it. I'd known Wang Dawei for years. He was never the active type. But now, jogging in the neighborhood, gym membership, and even working out at home during the apocalypse, it made me feel a sense of urgency. Following his lead can't be wrong. I replayed his video several times and noticed today's focus was arm strength exercises. I followed along until I hit my limit, then went to sleep. Day 3 of the apocalypse. I woke up sore everywhere. The only time I'd felt anything like this was during military training in school. I lay there with my eyes half open, massaging my arms and legs until the soreness loosened up, then dragged myself out of bed with a string of yawns. After washing my eyes, my morning luxury, I decided on something simple. Lean pork porridge today. I put the little iron pot on the stove, added water, unwashed rice, a small piece of minced pork, and a pinch of salt. While it cooked, I warmed myself by the fire and scrolled my phone. Way fewer people online today. It had been 3 days. Lots of places lost power on day 1, so phones were long dead by now. Some areas didn't even have internet anymore. Others were too busy surviving to complain online. The internet felt eerily quiet. I refreshed several times but saw no new video from Wang Dawei. I put the phone down and opened the floating panel. The world channel was dead. 2 days ago, messages flew by too fast to read. Today there were barely any. The Quanshui City channel was even quieter. The newest message was from an hour ago. I scrolled up and found Yi Hongyu's essay from last night. Not a single reply. I snorted so hard I sounded like a pig. His little scheme had completely flopped. He probably expected me to come begging, or at least hope some sleazy guys would pile on and harass me. But seriously, in the middle of an apocalypse, who had time for that? Was my body more tempting than a piece of pork? Obviously not. Still no messages from Wang Dawei. Disappointing. Maybe he overdid the exercise yesterday and slept in. After 2 warm bowls of porridge, I checked one more time, still nothing. So I packed my saw and axe into a small bamboo basket, changed out of my clean clothes into yesterday's muddy ones that had dried by the stove overnight, dirty but warm, put on a thick hat to protect my buzzed head and ears, added a face mask, and headed out. Today's mission: chop trees. The goal was to fill up the 2 cubic meters of space I'd dug out yesterday. If I couldn't finish today, I'd continue tomorrow. The ground was slippery. Every step had to be careful. I scanned my surroundings as I walked. I couldn't cut trees too close to the shelter. That would expose it. Too far away, and hauling wood back would be exhausting. The trees couldn't be too big either. I only had 1 chainsaw and needed to save fuel. If it broke, I couldn't fix it. Without the chainsaw, I'd be down to a hand saw and axe, which meant big trees were out of the question. About 15 minutes later, I stopped in a dense pine forest. Perfect. Not too close, not too far. The forest was thick enough that if I took trees here and there instead of clearing a whole section, nobody would notice unless they walked right up to it. The trees ranged from bull width to thigh width.
Just right.
La 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 la, my name is Jiang Qingyue. Today I'm a lumberjack. I hummed a tuneless song while sawing away. 10 minutes later, the first tree went down. I trimmed the branches with the axe, cut the trunk into 30-centimeter lengths, then split them with the axe. Thick pieces into 4, thin pieces into 2, just the right size for my tin stove. I loaded the split wood into my basket and stacked it neatly. Tried lifting it. 1 tree would take 3 trips to carry back. I was thirsty anyway, so I hauled the first load back, drank some water, rested, and went back for more. In the afternoon, I dug out a pack of processed chicken from my supplies, put it in the iron pot with water and ginger powder, added some coal to the stove, and went back out with my basket. Time flies when you're working hard. Before I knew it, the sky was getting dark. There was still split wood left in the forest, but walking at night was dangerous. After thinking it over, I decided to leave it for tomorrow. Is my chicken done yet? I lifted the lid, scooped a spoonful of broth, blew on it, tasted it, and added a pinch of salt. I skimmed the fat off the top, ladled out half a bowl of meat and half a bowl of soup, and bit into a drumstick. Tender, falling apart, full of flavor. So good. I closed my eyes and savored it. Thank you, Wang Dawei. Without him, I wouldn't be eating delicious chicken right now. No wonder he'd had everything cleaned and vacuum sealed. It was incredibly convenient. One more bowl. I used to not care much for meat. I preferred fresh vegetables. But now, whether it was because of all the physical work or some animal instinct to store fat for the apocalypse, I wasn't craving vegetables at all. The meat was satisfying even without any sides. 3 full bowls of chicken and soup. Not a drop left in that little pot. That hit the spot. No vegetables today, so I'll take a vitamin pill. 1 pot of chicken plus 1 multivitamin, dinner done. I hung my sweaty clothes by the stove to dry as usual. Since the stove was already going, I ran outside, knocked loose a few frozen-together hailstones, and brought them in to melt in the pot. Once the water was warm enough, I pulled out my little wash basin. First, I washed my face. Then I soaked a towel and wiped down my sweaty body. Then I poured the used water into my foot basin and washed my feet. Only after all that did I finally toss the water outside. All right, let's see what the reborn Big Shot did today. I curled up in my soft bed and opened my phone. Nothing from Wang Dawei, no videos, no updates on his social media. At this rate, phones would be useless bricks within days. I opened the Quanshui City channel on the panel and scrolled for a while. Still no word from Wang Dawei. There's no way he's still sleeping, right? Honestly, I was getting nervous. Not following the reborn guy's lead made my sense of security drop by half. I kept scrolling stubbornly, and suddenly a notification popped up, a new feature announcement. This thing has new features. I tapped it open. A new section had been added. World Rankings. Rankings? I was confused. Ranked by what? I opened it. There were 3 leaderboards: New Forces Ranking, Individual Combat Power Ranking, and Survival Index Ranking. New Forces Ranking. Number 1. Ice Squad, Leader Wang Longhua. Number 2. Hope Base, Leader Huang Yali. Number 3. Happiness Base, Leader Wang Dawei. The moment I saw Happiness Base and Wang Dawei, I knew exactly who it was. Wang Dawei is a common name, but Happiness Base? That was obviously our happiness neighborhood. And making the world's top 3 new forces on day 3 of the apocalypse? No random person could do that. After my initial shock, I was even more shocked. Only 3rd. A reborn person who'd been preparing for over a month, and he was only ranked 3rd? My eyes drifted to the top 2. Those were the real monsters. No preparation, no rebirth, and they still beat him. Huang Yali. Hope Base Leader. That's clearly a woman's name. My blood pumped with excitement. That's one incredible woman. Unlike me, cowardly, hiding in my shelter like a squirrel hoarding nuts for winter. I kept scrolling. 100 forces total, domestic and international, mostly organized as squads or bases. Only 3 days in, and the world's power structure was already reshaping. The speed and cohesion of these people was terrifying. So Wang Dawei was silent all day because he was busy building Happiness Base? Does that mean almost everyone in our neighborhood joined? I did some mental math. Around 40,000 people. If they all joined, Happiness Base would be enormous in numbers alone. And yet even with that, they were still only 3rd. I opened the 2nd leaderboard. Individual Combat Power. Number 1. Long Jiuxing, female, 18 years old, Combat Power 836. Number 2. Yu, male, 29 years old, Combat Power 835. Number 3. Cheng Wangshan, male, 35 years old, Combat Power 81. At first I didn't pay attention, but when I saw number 3, I thought my eyes were playing tricks. I looked again, 81. And from 3rd place all the way down to 100th, everyone's combat power hovered between 79 and 81. Many had the exact same score, but different rankings. I didn't understand how the ranking worked, but my eyes were glued to 1st and 2nd place. 2 freaks of nature. Normal humans seemed to cap out around 80. So what were these 2 doing at over 800? Were they cheating? Or were they reborn too, like Wang Dawei? I checked the whole list carefully. Wang Dawei wasn't on it. He couldn't even crack the top 100 in combat power. Guess being reborn doesn't make you invincible. I moved on to the third leaderboard, Survival Index. Number 1. Wang Dawei, Survival Index 57. Only 57. I wondered how they calculated that. Second place was 53, and it went down from there. Again, only the top 100 were shown. I quickly scrolled to the bottom, about to switch to the regional channel to check for any new messages from Wang Dawei, when a very familiar name jumped out at me. Number 100, Jiang Qingyue, Survival Index 21. I froze completely. Me? It's got to be someone with the same name, right? I looked around my tiny shelter in bewilderment. This little hole in the ground got me on the leaderboard? I guess the survival index ranking isn't that impressive after all. After that little moment of self-roasting, I went back to the Quanxue City channel. One name dominated every conversation: Wang Dawei. He'd appeared on 2 of the 3 leaderboards, third in New Forces, first in Survival Index. Combined with his earlier predictions, the man had become a celebrity in Quanxue City overnight. On the World Channel, his name popped up constantly too. Everyone was discussing the 3 leaderboards and this guy with average combat power who somehow ranked at the top of everything else. In short, Wang Dawei was famous. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I could already see that the floating panel would eventually replace phones. But what features it might add later was unpredictable. So before the internet disappeared completely, I downloaded everything I could find. Anything related to human civilization, especially survival knowledge for extreme cold environments. I kept downloading until my phone's storage was completely full. Then I dug through my parents' old belongings, found their phones, unlocked them, and kept downloading on those too. Day 4 of the apocalypse. I ate a bowl of millet porridge for breakfast, dark circles under both eyes, strapped on my little bamboo basket, and headed out. Today's job was still chopping wood. Besides stockpiling supplies, staying warm was the most critical thing. To avoid freezing to death and still be able to sleep, the stove in the shelter had to burn nonstop. I needed to stockpile enough firewood before my charcoal and coal ran out. Luckily, trees were everywhere. As long as I was willing to put in the work, fuel wouldn't be a problem.
80.
80. I grunted, swinging the axe clumsily at a sawed log. Crack. The wood split in half, and something shiny flew out. What's that? It was tiny, about the size of a fingernail, milky white, almost invisible against the hailstones on the ground. If my eyesight weren't good, I'd have missed it entirely. I fumbled around on the ground with my work gloves until I finally picked it up. A gemstone. It had clear-cut edges and precise facets. It looked like some kind of gem. But that made no sense. What kind of gemstone grows inside a tree? I'd watched it fly out of the wood with my own eyes. I picked up both halves and found a perfect little groove where it had been embedded. The bark showed no signs of being carved or tampered with. It looked completely natural, as if the tree had grown around it. Whatever. I'll keep it for now. I stuffed it in my pocket. It was tiny, wouldn't take up any space. I went back to chopping. Whether from the sleepless night or pure exhaustion, my efficiency was way worse than yesterday. I made it back to the shelter before dark, dumped the wood, and collapsed by the stove to catch my breath. The coal I'd added at noon was nearly burned out, so I threw in 2 more pieces and put water on to boil. I barely had the strength to lift my arms, so I just made a simple bowl of noodles. While the water heated, I checked my phone. The internet was basically dead, but the World Channel on the panel was buzzing. Unfortunately, both the World and regional channels only supported text. I wished I could see Wang Dawei's videos, but he wasn't posting anymore. I scrolled through the Quanxue City channel for ages, my finger going numb, until I finally found a message Wang Dawei had posted around noon. Happiness Base was recruiting. It was a long post. I read every word carefully. He'd listed the address, our Happiness neighborhood, and said he wanted physically strong males between 18 and 35. People with special abilities could bring their families. The deal was simple: shared housing and free meals at a cafeteria. So basically room and board. I muttered, my scalp tingling. With around 40,000 people already in Happiness neighborhood, Wang Dawei still thought he didn't have enough and was recruiting from outside? Where was all the food coming from? What he'd stockpiled before the apocalypse couldn't possibly feed that many people. So, how is he solving the food problem for tens of thousands? He didn't say. I scrolled some more but couldn't find a second post from him. I also tried searching for anything about the little gemstone-like thing I'd found. Nothing. Forget it, time to eat. I boiled some dried noodles with fish balls, added seasonings, and a packet of pickled vegetables. I ate right by the stove instead of at my little table. After dinner, I rinsed the pot with the noodle water, went outside, knocked loose some hailstones, and melted them for washing water. The stove had to stay burning anyway, and there were plenty of hailstones out there, no reason to be stingy with myself. Washed my face, wiped down my body, washed my feet, changed into clean clothes. Once I was burrowed into my blanket, I checked the 3 leaderboards on a whim. The top rankings hadn't changed. The same forces, the same 2 monsters at the top of combat power. Wang Dawei still number 1 in survival index. I scrolled down to the bottom of the survival index list. The 100th place Jiang Qingyue, whether or not that was actually me, had moved up to 99th. Just 1 spot, but it made me weirdly happy. I fell asleep scrolling through messages without even realizing it. Day 5. No tree chopping today. The shelter had no room left for wood. So Jiang the miner was back on duty. Digging was actually easier than chopping. Working indoors with the stove going meant warm air, hot water whenever I wanted, and no need to bundle up so heavily or worry about frostbitten ears and nose. While digging, I hit something milky white in the brown soil. Very noticeable. There's one here too. I grabbed it immediately and put it with the one from yesterday. Found a small box to keep them safe since the shelter was cluttered and I didn't want to lose them. I didn't know what these things were for yet, but something cut this precisely, found inside both trees and soil, had to be connected to the apocalypse. Worth keeping. From then on, I paid close attention while digging, but I didn't find another one before the day was done. What will be, will be. Time to eat. I was in a good mood with plenty of energy, so I made dry pot bullfrog. The meat was already cleaned and vacuum sealed from before, just open and cook. I added some konjac and potatoes. A full pot, no need for rice. This alone filled me up. That night, instead of sleeping right away, I studied the survival materials I'd downloaded, focusing on extreme cold conditions. Every bit of knowledge counts. Better to have it in my head than to scramble for my phone in an emergency. I didn't put the phone down until my eyelids were fighting each other. Day 6. Back to chopping trees. I'd settled into a rhythm, one day digging, one day chopping. The wood I cut each day perfectly filled the space I'd dug the day before. That evening, I came back earlier than usual. Normally, I stayed out until near dark, but tomorrow was day 7. Actually, tonight at midnight would be day 7. I didn't want to gamble on when the temperature would drop. I rushed through a bowl of noodles and started preparing for the next cold wave. I dragged out 2 more big stoves from the corner. Over these past days, I'd figured out that with the outside at minus 20-something and the door mostly closed, one stove kept the shelter around minus 10. Fine for working in thick clothes during the day, but at night I needed to add more coal to reach at least minus 8, or it was too cold to sleep. If the temperature outside dropped further, one stove clearly wouldn't cut it. Wang Dawei was active on the channel today. The moment I opened the regional board, I saw his post, along with several messages from people claiming to be Happiness Base members. Wang Dawei's message stood out. I sincerely advise everyone, don't fall asleep tonight. Especially those who have no warm clothes and are cold and hungry.
Do not sleep.
I have a feeling that if you fall asleep, you might not wake up tomorrow morning. That message made me light all 3 stoves without a second of hesitation. I went outside, knocked a bucket of hailstones loose, melted them, and wiped off all my sweat. Then I layered up, thermal underwear closest to skin, autumn clothes and pants in the middle, faux fur coat on top. I dug out the thickest hat I'd bought, almost like a hard hat, with windproof and waterproof outer fabric and thick Sherpa fleece lining. It covered my head, ears, chin, and neck. Then I sat and watched the clock count down. Finally, second by second, midnight arrived. The panel didn't change, but that booming voice came right on time. Congratulations to all players who survived the first cold wave. You endured the initial trial and are about to enter new survival rules. The second cold wave has arrived. Temperature, minus 50 degrees. The light brain is now officially bound to each individual. Its many features are yours to explore. Friendly reminder. Next cold wave countdown 180 days. After the voice faded, the floating panel transformed into a smartwatch on my left wrist. A message appeared. The system had bound my real name, Jiang Qingyue, using a global real name registration. I tapped it and a screen popped up showing my personal information, name, gender, age, even my ID number. Everything was there. There were also 2 items marked as incomplete. First, faction name. Second, set up a light brain assistant avatar. Faction name? I haven't built any faction. Do I still have to fill this in? I skipped that and tapped the second option. The assistant avatars were limited. Old man, old woman, middle-aged man, and 2 teenagers, 1 boy, 1 girl. I picked the girl. Her voice was nicer. For her name, I just called her Xiao Yi, same name I used for my phone assistant. Force of habit. Xiao Yi, is the faction field mandatory? Can I skip it? Sorry, you can't. You can either join an existing faction or create your own. I went quiet for a moment. I didn't want to build anything. I just wanted to survive quietly until the day I died of old age. Xiao Yi, can a faction have only 1 member, just me, and I just need to give it a name? Yes, that's allowed. Really? That easy? I stopped overthinking and typed in my faction name, Jiang Qingyue's Little Nest. Submitted. Xiao Yi told me to check my personal panel. I opened it. Health. 89/100. Fullness. 96/100. Hydration. 85/100. Composite index. 44. Trade coins. 2. I stared at the screen for a while. The first 3 made sense. Xiao Yi. What's the composite index? It combines your faction strength, combat power, and survival index into 1 overall score. That clicked. So it's basically a master leaderboard or a more accurate version of the survival index, because a strong faction might just be a disorganized mob. A high combat power person might be an idiot who doesn't know to come inside when it rains. And someone with a high survival index, like me, might just be a lucky squirrel who hoarded supplies but had no other real abilities. Each leaderboard had its blind spots. The composite index combined all 3 for a truer picture of someone's overall ability to survive the apocalypse. The strongest would be someone who is personally powerful, led a major faction, had mountains of supplies and weapons, and had monster-level combat power. That person would have the highest composite index, the full package. Xiao Yi, what are trade coins? Based on my scan, you have 2 trade coins in the small box in your shelter. Those gemstones are trade coins. I grabbed the box.
Yes.
Think of them as the new currency. What can I do with them?
Who do I trade with?
Is there a trading area in the light brain? Yes. The trading zone opens on the 1st of each month. Entry costs 10 trade coins. You can buy things or sell items you don't need. Interesting. I did the math. I definitely needed lots of things. Besides finding them randomly while chopping trees or digging, is there another way to get trade coins? All transactions within the trading zone must be paid in trade coins. Got it. And that little plus sign next to my composite index, what does that mean? That's for stat boosts. The main god has scattered many special items throughout this world. These items can be obtained in various ways. For example, a strength orb, tap the plus sign, consume 1 strength orb, and your combat power increases. Higher combat power means a higher composite index. That reminded me of the 2 freaks at the top of the combat power list. Xiao Yi. The top 2 on the combat power rankings both have scores over 800, way beyond everyone else. What's going on with them? Sorry, I'm only your personal assistant. I don't have permission to view other people's stats. I did some quick math. June only has 30 days. Today was June 22nd, which meant the trading zone would open in 8 days. I needed 10 trade coins just to get in the door, and I only had 2. If I wanted to actually buy anything inside, I'd need at least 20. And the only way to get them was stumbling on them by luck while digging or chopping wood. After spending over an hour studying the light brain, I realized trade coins were even more important than I thought. First, making Xiao Yi do anything useful costs trade coins. Need her to identify a mysterious item? Pay up. Second, this light brain we'd been given was only the basic version. Upgrading it required a fortune in trade coins. And even keeping the basic version running required a monthly rental fee, like paying for phone plan. This month was free as a beginner bonus, but starting next month, if I didn't pay, the light brain would shut down and become a useless rock on my wrist. Learning all this made my heart feel heavy. Then I noticed it was getting warm. I checked the thermometer. With all 3 stoves blazing, the shelter had climbed to 3 degrees above zero. Too hot. I immediately put out one stove. Not because I didn't like warmth, but because I had no freezer. If the temperature went above zero, all my frozen food would spoil. From the past few days, I'd figured out that keeping the shelter around -6 or 7 was ideal, cold enough to preserve the food, warm enough that I could work and sleep in heavy clothes, and it saved fuel too. After killing one stove, I put on thick gloves and opened the shelter door. A blast of bitter cold air hit me. My flashlight revealed massive snowflakes mixed with freezing rain pouring down like it was free. I slammed the door shut. If this keeps up, it'll affect everything tomorrow. Snow alone would have been manageable. I could shovel it away and clear a work area. But freezing rain mixed with snow? By morning it would be frozen solid, impossible to move. And my shelter door was on a small exposed hillside with no windbreak. If I let the snow pile up, it would seal the door shut. No sleeping tonight. I dug through my stuff and found a small clay pot, not something I'd bought for the apocalypse, just an old one from home. I cleaned off the dust, put it on the stove with water, and went searching through my frozen supplies until I found a vacuum-sealed pigeon buried under everything else. I dropped the whole bird in with some dates and ginger to stew slowly. I browsed the light brain for a while. Not many people online. Everyone was busy exploring the new system and hunting for trade coins. The people who'd built factions had a huge advantage. Someone like Wang Dawei, with 40,000 people, could crowdsource coins. Even if only 1 in 10 people found one by accident, that added up fast. Nothing useful in the messages, so I changed into my rain gear over professional cold weather gear, grabbed a shovel and pickaxe, strapped on a headlamp, and went outside, pulling the shelter door shut behind me. I started shoveling snow and hacking at the frozen ground underneath. 2 minutes later, I was scrambling back into the shelter in a panic. My teeth were chattering so hard I could barely think. I ripped off the rain gear, threw on my fur coat, dove into bed, and wrapped myself in blankets, waiting for my body to slowly warm up. Why didn't I go sit by the fire? Because my fingers had already lost all feeling. The blood vessels were half frozen. If I heated them up now, the vessels would expand too fast, and the cells would die. Before the apocalypse, that kind of frostbite meant amputation. Now, with no hospital, it would mean infection and death. So cold. So this is what -50 feels like. It's terrifying. I'd badly underestimated it. I thought heavy clothes plus movement plus windproof gear would buy me at least a few minutes. After actually experiencing it, I knew that was impossible. Even without the rain and snow, -50 outdoors was more than any normal person could handle. I looked at the corner where I'd stored my professional-grade cold weather equipment. That stuff was expensive and I hadn't bought much. Even with it, I estimated I couldn't stay outside long, especially at this exposed, windy location. I made instant coffee and slowly my hands and feet came back to life, itching horribly. I filled a basin with room temperature water, about 23 degrees, and soaked my hands and feet. No hot water. That would cause more damage. After resting for an hour, I checked the door. The snow was heavier than before. If I ignore this all night, the door will definitely be sealed shut by morning. What could I do? I went rummaging through my supplies and actually found something that might work. I took off the fur coat, suited up in my professional cold weather gear, checked every inch to make sure no skin was exposed, and went outside with tent materials. Definitely worth the money. The professional gear was far better than my improvised outfit, still cold, but I didn't feel that rapid heat loss anymore. I worked fast, setting up the tent over the shelter entrance. This way snow couldn't pile up against the door. I just need to come out periodically and knock the snow off the tent before it collapsed under the weight. Knowing my skills were limited, I bought the easiest tent to set up. The only struggle was hammering stakes into frozen ground. I used every ounce of strength I had, and my arms ached with each blow. After getting the last steak in, I rushed back inside. Total time outside, 8 minutes. I assessed how my body felt. 10 minutes is my absolute limit. 2 trips outside had made it crystal clear. In this weather, even in top-tier gear, 10 minutes was the most I could endure. Past that, I'd start losing body heat uncontrollably. Alone, with no one to help me, I might not make it back inside even if the shelter was right there. For safety, I need to keep trips under 5 minutes. I soaked my hands and feet again, my frown deepening. This meant I couldn't go out to chop wood anymore. I had a decent stockpile of heating fuel, but sitting here burning through it with no way to replenish it made me extremely anxious. Xiao-yi, I'm here. If my composite index goes up, will my body become more resistant to cold? This was the critical question. If there was no way to improve our physical abilities, I couldn't imagine how many people would die. I was one of the prepared ones: professional gear, heating supplies, shelter, food, medicine, everything. And even I couldn't go outside. What about everyone else? Don't worry. The main god designed this as a trial, not an extermination. There will be many wondrous items scattered throughout the world. Items that boost strength, speed, and more. If you find something that increases your constitution, you'll naturally become resistant to the cold. That calmed me down, but only slightly. Based on how rare the trade coins had been, I doubted these special items would be common. And even if they appeared in the monthly trading zone, nobody would sell them. These items were clearly more valuable than food or water. Faction leaders didn't need food, they had plenty. But when their members found special items, they could trade food and water for them, or just demand them as tribute. Once items like that reached the top, they'd never come back to the market. This was terrible for solo players like me. My only hope was pure luck. And my world was tiny, just the shelter and the surrounding hillside, digging and chopping. My chances of finding anything special were lower than winning the lottery. I skimmed the foam off the pigeon soup, added salt, and opened the door to check. The tent was doing its job much better than I'd hoped. The howling wind couldn't blast directly into the doorway anymore. The tent was holding up, but it still needed clearing. Back inside, I checked my phone. No signal. First time since the apocalypse that I'd completely lost internet. Compared to people who lost connection on day 2 or 3, I'd lasted pretty well. I switched to the light brain. Lots of people calling for help. No messages from Wang Dawei on the regional channel. A few Happiness Base members posted brief updates, thanking Brother Wang for his foresight, saying they'd eaten well, some mentioning an extra meal tonight. They seemed to be doing fine, at least the ones posting. When the timing felt right, I closed the light brain and grabbed a pink stick, one of those 4-pole hooks I'd bought a couple years ago during a hospital stay, so I could will my drip to the bathroom. When I'd moved out of my sold apartment, I'd swept up everything and hauled it to the shelter. Never expected it to be useful. I opened the door. The tent was buried under thick snow. The freezing rain mixed with snow stuck instantly in this cold. It wouldn't slide off on its own. I tapped and knocked with my pink stick from the bottom up, clearing all the snow off the tent, then ducked back inside. I couldn't sleep. At this rate, I needed to go out every 30 minutes to clear the tent, or it would collapse under the weight. Between trips, I studied extreme cold survival knowledge on my phone. I swear I never studied this hard for my college entrance exams. I set alarms every 30 minutes. When one went off, I'd grab my pink stick, rush outside, knock the snow off, come back, and keep reading. I didn't know when the snow would stop, but as long as it kept falling, I had to keep doing this. Around 3 in the morning, after several rounds, the pigeon soup was finally done. Perfect timing. I'm starving. I poked the pigeon with chopsticks and the meat fell right off the bone. I ate pieces of tender meat between sips of rich broth. 1 whole pigeon, gone in minutes. That hit the spot. I rubbed my slightly overstuffed belly. Before the apocalypse, 1 pigeon would have lasted me 3 meals. I used to barely eat meat. A few bites and I'd feel greasy. Especially meat soups, with all that purine and no real nutrition. I'd avoided them like the plague. Now, those warm bowls of broth made my whole body feel alive. I rested a few minutes, took a vitamin pill, and when the alarm went off again, out I went with my pink stick. All night long, back and forth, over and over. Finally, at dawn, the snow stopped. I had just finished clearing the tent when I noticed through the transparent fabric that the massive curtain of rain and snow simply vanished. Not gradually, instantly. Snowflakes that were still falling midair disappeared before reaching the ground. Even in an apocalypse, the weather doesn't have to be this dramatic, I muttered. I hurried back inside. The snow had stopped, but the temperature hadn't changed. Still -50. According to everything I'd studied last night, without any professional equipment, exposed skin in this cold would kill a person in minutes. With the snow done, I needed to sit down and figure out how to get more trade coins or items that could improve my body. I didn't need to become powerful. I had no ambitions. I just needed my body to handle the cold well enough to go outside and chop firewood. That was all. Nice ideas are one thing. Reality is another. I racked my brain, but couldn't figure out any fast way to get trade coins. In the end, I gave in to reality. Going outside was impossible, but I still had to work. So Jiang the miner clocked back in. Today I was extra careful while digging, cracking open every clump of dirt to check for hidden trade coins. But after an entire day, I found nothing. Zero. I was so dejected I didn't even feel like cooking properly. I just threw together some rice, 2 preserved eggs, a bit of minced pork, and some dehydrated vegetables, a lazy preserved egg porridge to fill my stomach. I scooped some snow from outside, melted it, washed up, and crawled into bed. On the light brain, I noticed the World Channel had fewer rescue calls than before. I didn't know why. I switched to the Quanshui City Channel and walked right into a drama. It started when a guy named Yang Guangming from Happiness Base posted a message. Everyone who sees this, run. Happiness Base is a trap disguised as a community. I just found a golden light orb, and Wang Dawei sent people to beat me up and steal it. They threw me out on the street to die. This is my last message. Neighbors in the neighborhood, get out while you can. After that, people with Happiness Base tags started going off. I recognized a lot of names, old customers of mine. I knew more people in the area than Wang Dawei did, honestly. Running a fish shop, I'd chat with customers while cleaning their orders, and over the years I got to know plenty of folks from the surrounding neighborhoods. Many had my number, so they could call ahead with orders. Now, those same people were flooding the channel. One woman said her husband found a trade coin while chipping ice for water, and patrol members snatched it from him without even a thank you. A man said he spent all day chopping wood in the freezing cold, found a trade coin, and Wang Dawei told him the base would hold it for safekeeping, never gave it back. A mother said her daughter found a coin in the snow and a base manager tricked her, promising a bowl of hot porridge in exchange. No porridge, no coin. Another guy nearly died clearing snow outside, found a coin, turned it in, and was told it was community property. On and on and on. People I knew, people I didn't, all exposing what Happiness Base was really like, calling for everyone to resist Wang Dawei's rule. But in the end, it was just victims huddling together for warmth. Wang Dawei didn't even bother responding. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold. Thank God I'd gotten out early. If I'd hesitated even a little, if I'd been reluctant to sell my apartment at a low price, I'd be one of those people getting robbed right now. I scrolled for a long time. Other neighborhoods had formed bases too, with similar structures, but none were as blatant as Wang Dawei's. It was only day 7. Most people still had their humanity. Wang Dawei was bold because he knew nobody was coming to stop him. I sighed. There was nothing I could do. I closed the light brain, pulled out my phone, no internet anymore, and studied my downloaded survival materials for 2 more hours. Then I tucked the blankets tight around me like a cocoon and fell into a deep sleep. Morning, June 23rd. Day 8. I woke up freezing. The fire in the stoves had nearly died. I scrambled up, added fuel to both stoves, then cracked the shelter door open for ventilation. Bitter wind poured in, but I had no choice. When I was going in and out for wood, fresh air came in naturally. Now, stuck inside all day, I had to deliberately let air in periodically. No snow today, but still couldn't go outside. The wind was vicious. One breath of that air could kill you. Guess it's digging day. After breakfast, I picked up the pickaxe. Expanding now meant I'd have room for firewood later, once my body could handle the outdoors. Every swing made my arms go numb. Since the temperature dropped to -50, the frozen ground had become incredibly hard. What used to be 2 cubic meters a day was now half that. But I had to keep going. I couldn't just lie around sleeping. Besides, I was still hoping to find trade coins in the dirt. Just as I was thinking that, clunk, the pickaxe hit something hard. I assumed it was a rock. But when I dug it out, it was a purple glowing orb about the size of an apple. A special item. I wiped all the dirt off immediately. It looked squishy and bouncy, but when I squeezed it, it was hard as crystal.
Shaoyi.
What is this? Identifying items costs 1 trade coin. I winced. I only had 2, but I couldn't just not identify it. Do it. 1 coin flew out of my little box, floated to the light brain on my wrist, and absorbed right into it. Money first, service second.
Great.
But the service was real. A beam of light scanned the purple orb, and a screen popped up with its information. Name, Lucky Star. Serial number 8931. 8. From the 8th trial zone. 9. Adds 9 luck points. 3 total were placed in this zone. 1. I was the first person to find one. My emotions crashed from excitement to despair in a heartbeat. Luck. I needed something that boosted my physical constitution, so I could survive the cold outside. What good was luck? Shaoyi, our extreme cold apocalypse, is the 8th trial zone. Does that mean there are other zones? Yes. Each zone has a different trial and different items. All special items in your zone start with the number 8. Is 9 points of luck a lot or a little? All original serial numbers are 4 digits, so 9 is the maximum value. What's the minimum, 1 or 0? I suddenly worried that a 0 would mean using the item gave you nothing. The minimum is 1. Okay then. I stared at it for a while. Only 3 lucky stars existed in this entire zone. The other 2 might give 9 points like mine, or they might give just 1. So mine was potentially the best of the 3. Use it. I opened my personal panel. I couldn't sell it anyway. The trading zone wasn't open yet, and I didn't even have enough coins to get in. Better to just use it now, especially something this rare. I held the lucky star near the light brain and tapped the plus sign. It was absorbed just like the trade coin. My composite index jumped from 44 to 53. I didn't feel any different physically, probably because it boosted luck, not constitution. Then a thought hit me. If my composite index went up, did my survival index ranking change too? I opened the leaderboard. Wang Dawei was still number 1, his survival index now 63, up from 57 when the rankings first appeared. I scrolled to the bottom. Number 99. Wasn't me. I scrolled up. 98, 97, 85. None of them were me. What's going on? I was confused. Did I drop off the list entirely? Or was the Jiang Qingyue on the leaderboard always just someone with the same name who'd since died? I kept scrolling almost aimlessly, and my finger froze. Number 6. Jiang Qingyue.
Is that
Me? I wanted it to be me, but it didn't seem possible. Just 9 luck points, and I jumped from 99th to 6th? Was luck really that powerful? I took a deep breath. Maybe I'd been underestimating special items. Of course, that assumed this Jiang Qingyue was actually me, and not just someone with the same name. I studied it for a while, but couldn't figure it out, so I decided to test it. Yesterday I dug all day, without finding a single trade coin. Now with boosted luck, would my fortune change? I didn't need much, just 1 coin would prove it. I drank some hot water, grabbed the pickaxe, and started digging again, watching every swing carefully.
clang?
My heart leaped. I dug it out fast and found a round dirt clod. I brushed away the mud, and my smile froze. A rock. Got my hopes up for nothing. I kept digging.
Clang.
I got excited again. Dug it out. Didn't even need to brush away dirt this time. It was obviously just a big rock. Are you messing with me? I realized I was losing my mind. Before, I'd hit rocks all the time while digging and never cared. Now I was expecting every clang to be treasure. I reset my attitude. Dig to expand the shelter. Check dirt clumps for coins, but don't obsess. At noon I ate 2 overly sweet bread rolls that were close to their expiration date, drank some hot water, rested 30 minutes, and went back to digging. Nothing all morning. I told myself to be patient. I'd gotten luckier, not become God's favorite child. Nothing all afternoon either. By then I was convinced that Jiang Qingyue at number 6 on the leaderboard wasn't me. 9 lousy luck points couldn't possibly rocket someone up that far. If it could, why hadn't I gotten any luckier?
Clang.
Another hard object. I didn't even react. Obviously another rock. I swung the pickaxe and whoosh, out poured a cascade of small white shimmering things. I froze.
Blinked.
Blinked again. I grabbed the lamp and pulled it closer to make sure I wasn't seeing things. Trade coins.
Not one. A pile.
I'm rich. I ripped off my gloves, grabbed my little box, and dropped to the ground to start picking them up. 1, 2, 3. I counted very, very carefully. 368. It took ages to collect them all. I triple-checked the ground to make sure I hadn't missed any, poked the pickaxe back into the hole to confirm it was empty, and then sat there hugging the box and grinning like an idiot. Including the one I already had, that was 369 trade coins. I sat by the fire cradling my little box, still feeling like I was dreaming. Just like that, I'd gone from a sad girl with 1 lonely coin to a mini tycoon with 369. The trading zone entry fee was covered, and I'd have plenty left to buy things. My survival ability had just skyrocketed. Wait, having money also means my survival ability went up. So my ranking should change too, right? I opened the survival index leaderboard again. This time I didn't need to scroll far. Past the top few names, there I was. Still number 6. But my survival index had gone from 53 to 54. I knew it. Only 1 point increase, but it was an increase. And now I was absolutely certain. The Jiang Qingyue on that leaderboard was me. Not someone with the same name.
Me.
After finding those trade coins, I stopped panicking. 369 coins. Plenty to shop with when the trading zone opened on July 1st. For the next 7 days, I just kept expanding the shelter. The frozen ground was brutal to dig through. 7 full days of work only gave me about 10 cubic meters of new space, and the dirt was still bagged up inside the shelter, because going outside to dump it was such a hassle. Every trip required suiting up in full professional cold weather gear. My plan was to buy something in the trading zone that could boost my physical constitution. Once I was stronger, the cold wouldn't be as deadly, I'd have more muscle power, and hauling dirt bags outside would be much easier. These past days were actually pretty nice. 2 home-cooked meals a day, 10 hours of sleep. The only disappointment was not finding any more trade coins or special items. June 30th, 11 at night. I was sitting on my bed with the light brain open, ready to go. 1 hour until the trading zone opened. My little box with all 369 coins sat right beside me. While waiting, I checked the 3 leaderboards. New forces ranking. Number 1 was now Happiness Base. Leader, Wang Dawei. He'd climbed from 3rd to 1st in just 7 days. The woman Huang Yali and her Hope Base held steady at 2nd. The previous number 1, Ice Squad, had dropped to 3rd. Looking further down, I noticed several familiar factions from the top 10 had completely vanished, not just dropped in rank, but gone entirely. Either they'd fallen out of the top 100, disbanded, or been destroyed. My face grew serious. These were factions strong enough to make the leaderboard, and they'd still disappeared. What about individuals? People like me, alone counting as a one-person faction? How many had fallen asleep one night and never woken up? Combat power ranking. Number 1 was still Long Jiuxing, now at 913. Number 2, Yu Yu at 888. Number 3, Wang Dawei at 155. Then a massive drop to 4th place at 91. I was stunned. Wang Dawei had gone from not even being on this list to 3rd place in just 7 days. That made sense for a reborn person who knew where items were hidden, plus he had tens of thousands of people handing over their finds. He'd probably seized plenty of special items by force. But those top 2 were something else entirely. They'd already been at 800 plus before special items even existed. Now the 1st place woman was over 900. How are they getting stronger? I was drooling with envy. With combat power over 900, they probably weren't even afraid of the cold anymore. I hugged my blanket tighter, missing the days of t-shirts and shorts. Survival index. Wang Dawei was still first at 90. I was fifth now, still at 54, up one spot because the person who'd been fifth before had dropped from 55 down to the 30s. Their index had actually decreased. Xiao Yi, the survival index can go down? Yes. Many reasons: serious injury, betrayal by subordinates, or obtaining negative special items like Child of Heaven's Wrath. I froze. Wait, special items can be bad? There are ones with negative effects. Yes. Child of Heaven's Wrath is the opposite of Lucky Star. One increases your survival index and brings more positive events. The other decreases it and brings more negative ones. A chill ran through me. I'd assumed all special items were good. But why would anyone use a Child of Heaven's Wrath? They could just not use it. Some people don't have trade coins to pay for identification or don't want to spend them. They just use the item directly without knowing what it does. That tracked. I remembered how painful it was to spend one of my only 2 coins on identification. I browsed the channels for a while. The Quanshui City channel was dominated by happiness base members. Wang Dawei was a legend on all 3 leaderboards, all in the top 3. Surrounding neighborhoods had apparently merged into happiness base too. I did some math on my fingers. The original neighborhood had around 40,000 people. The surrounding ones added maybe 30,000 more. Plus random individuals who joined because of Wang Dawei's reputation. Conservatively, happiness base now had 80,000 people. That was the population of a small town. At 11:57, I stopped browsing and waited quietly. Xiao Yi, there'll be a notification when the trading zone opens, right? Yes. On the 1st of each month, the Light Brain adds a new entrance. Pay the entry fee and you'll be taken to a marketplace where everyone in the 8th trial zone who paid can trade. Got it. Like an international mall. At 11:59, I counted out 10 trade coins for my box. Midnight, July 1st. A red flashed on the Light Brain. Trading zone is open. Enter? I tapped yes. Entry fee: 10 trade coins.
Proceed? Yes.
10 coins flew from my hand into the Light Brain. A new section appeared, with big bold red text at the top. 8th trading zone. The rules were posted. Trade coins only. Each person gets 1 stall with a maximum of 10 items. The system takes a 10% tax from the seller, deducted automatically. The trading zone stays open for 1 hour. If you leave and come back, you pay the entry fee again. Total robbery, I muttered. You really couldn't do anything without trade coins. I decided to test the stall feature. I dug through my supplies and listed 10 items: 1 vacuum-sealed pigeon, 1 packet of pickled vegetables, 1 lighter, 1 thermal blanket, 1 vacuum-sealed lobster, 1 pack of cold medicine, 1 bag of expired compressed biscuits, 1 bottle of water, 1 bundle of firewood, and 1 bag of soil. All 10 items vanished from in front of me and entered the Light Brain. Interesting. The system explained how trading worked. Buyers set the price and offer their coins. I'd get a notification and could accept or reject. If I accepted, the item would be teleported to the buyer. The system would take its 10% cut, and the remaining coins would be held at my stall until I left. If I rejected, the buyer's coins were returned and no tax was charged. So sellers can't set prices. Buyers make offers, and sellers just say yes or no. Kind of annoying. I would have preferred a simple shopping setup where you list a price and buyers just pay. No transactions yet, so I went browsing. Setting up a stall was just testing the waters. What I really needed was to find something that would boost my constitution. I started tapping through stalls one by one. The system was painfully basic. No search function, no categories, no organization at all. Just an endless list of people's names. You had to click each name to see their 10 items. For something created by an all-powerful main god, this is really not smart. First stall, clothes. All regular winter stuff, cotton jackets, down coats. Nothing professional grade. Next stall, seeds. Who could grow anything in this weather? Next, weapons. I got excited and looked carefully at all 10 items. I mainly wanted constitution-boosting items, but a good weapon would be worth buying too. Unfortunately, nothing special. Just ordinary stuff. I kept going, not discouraged. This was like treasure hunting, Patience was the whole game. Then I saw a stall under the name Wang Dawei. I clicked in immediately. My breath caught. 3 special items. Space backpack, serial number 8182. Constitution potion, serial number 8292. Child of Heaven's Wrath, serial number 8933. The rest were food. I glanced and moved on. My eyes were locked on the first 3. Child of Heaven's Wrath. Xiao Yi had just told me about that one. Negative item. Ignored. Xiao Yi, the Constitution potion, serial 8292. From the 8th trial zone. Adds 2 Constitution points. 9 were placed in this zone, and this Wang Dawei was the second person to find one. But the space backpack, serial 8182. What does the 1 mean? 1 point of backpack value? Or 1 cubic meter of space? I don't know, I didn't identify it, so I can't tell you. Whatever. I didn't need to overthink it. What I desperately needed was the Constitution potion. If I had coins left over afterward, I could try for the space backpack too. I tapped the Constitution potion. Xiao Yi, how much should I offer? Sorry, I can't provide price guidance. Fine. I thought it over, gritted my teeth, and offered 100 trade coins. 100 coins flew from my box into the light brain. Instantly, a notification. Sorry, the other party rejected the trade. The 100 coins flew back into my box. Rejected that fast. My heart sank. I tried again, 200 coins. I was pretty sure this Wang Dawei was the happiness space Wang Dawei. Who else would have 3 special items to sell during the very first trading zone? It meant he had even better stuff for himself. Notification. Sorry, the other party rejected the trade. Rejected again. I hesitated. I understood how valuable special items were. My lucky star had launched me from 99th to 6th on the survival index. But my coins were limited. And this potion only added 2 points of constitution. Would that even be enough to let me go outside? I didn't hesitate long. I clenched my jaw and offered 350. That was my absolute maximum. I needed to keep some coins in reserve. 350 coins flew into the light brain. My little box had just 9 lonely coins left. I sat on my bed, fists clenched, eyes glued to the screen. A moment later, a notification popped up. The other party accepted the trade. The trade coins didn't come back this time. Instead, a small shiny bottle flew out of the light brain. Inside was a tiny amount of dreamy blue liquid, sealed with a cork. Since the previous owner had already identified it and I'd bought it with trade coins, the information came to me automatically, no extra identification fee needed. Special item. Constitution potion. Serial number 8293. 8. 8th trial zone. 2. Adds 2 constitution points. 9. 9 total placed in this zone. 3. I was the third owner. I noticed the last digit had changed. It was 8,292 when I saw it on Wang Dawei's stall. Xiao Yi, why did the serial number change? The last digit updates with each change of ownership, trades, gifts, even theft. So, if an item gets passed around enough, the serial number could grow to 5 or 6 digits. Exactly. What really mattered was the second digit. That told you how good the item was. The third digit showed how rare it was. I put the potion aside, without using it right away. With only 9 trade coins left, I couldn't buy anything worthwhile, but I still had time to browse. I opened stall after stall. Most people sold food, warm clothes, and water. Nobody seemed to be selling special items, or at least nobody was willing to part with them. My own stall hadn't gotten a single offer either. Not one item sold. After 1 hour, the trading zone closed and all 10 items popped back out. The next opening wouldn't be until August 1st. My grandma used to say the village market came once a week. I grumbled. This is once a month for 1 hour, with no search function. I grabbed the Constitution potion. Xiao Yi, do I drink this or use the plus button? You can drink it directly. Any special item you can put in your mouth is meant to be consumed. I pulled the cork and downed it in 1 gulp. Oh, my eyes lit up. Strawberry flavor. It was actually delicious, sweet like a soft drink. The moment it hit my stomach, warmth spread out. From my belly to my arms, my legs, my fingers, my toes. And it kept getting hotter. This is intense. I kicked off my blanket. Still hot. Took off my padded jacket. Still hot. Sweat was beading on my scalp. I stripped down to just my thin thermal underwear and finally felt comfortable. I checked the thermometer. With 2 stoves burning, the shelter was at -7. -7 degrees, and I was comfortable in thin thermals. I was stunned. This was completely different from the Lucky Star. Luck didn't change how my body felt at all. But just 2 points of constitution? The effect was immediate and dramatic. I looked at the shelter door. If -7 feels like early autumn to me now, what if I put on all my layers and went outside? I got dressed immediately. Autumn clothes, padded jacket, padded pants, fur coat, thickest hat covering my head and ears and chin, gloves covering every inch of skin except my eyes. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in through the tent, but it wasn't the killing cold from before. In the tent, it felt like wearing shorts on a rainy autumn day. Cold, but bearable. I unzipped the tent flap and stuck one foot outside. I was wearing my thick fur-lined boots, the same ones I'd worn before when I nearly died from the cold. This time, no instant numbness, no feeling of dying. Cold, yes, but completely manageable. Slowly, I stepped fully outside, moved around, tested myself, then went back inside. Confirmed, as long as my skin wasn't exposed and I stayed dry, I could last 2 hours outside in regular winter clothes. No professional gear needed. This potion is incredible. I stared at the empty bottle, my eyes burning with desire. 2 more points, and I could probably walk around outside in flip-flops and bare arms. But there were only 9 in the whole zone. I figured Wang Dawei had kept the best one for himself and sold this lesser one. That meant at most 7 constitution potions were still out there somewhere among billions of people in the 8th trial zone. Billions of people. 7 potions. 1 in a billion odds. Even with my 9 points of luck, I didn't believe I could be that fortunate. And buying another in the trading zone? Forget it. This was the first opening. Lots of people didn't have enough coins yet. Next month, every big faction leader would be loaded with coins. I couldn't outbid them. Whatever. Sleep first. Worrying was pointless. Getting more special items or coins meant going outside, and now I actually could. I turned off one stove, leaving only the smallest burning. Popped a vitamin pill, stripped down to thermals, and crawled into bed. In the middle of the night, I actually felt hot. I pulled the blanket up and stuck both feet out to cool off. That hadn't happened since before the apocalypse. No shop to open, so I slept until I woke up naturally. 8 in the morning. After a lazy wash, I put my clay pot on the stove with 8 treasure porridge ingredients and water, got dressed, and started hauling dirt bags outside. Last night I'd listed a bag of soil on my stall as a joke. Maybe some weirdo needed dirt? Nobody did. So it was back to carrying bags out by hand. Or rather, by fingertips.
Wait.
This is light, same bags. Same amount of dirt. Before, dragging one bag required every ounce of strength I had. Now I lifted it with 2 fingers. Incredible. I need more constitution potions. Absolutely need more. I was hooked on items that made me immediately, tangibly stronger. The Lucky Star was nice in theory, but this I could feel in my muscles. I grabbed 5 bags in one hand and hauled 10 bags at a time. What was supposed to be a full day's work was done in under an hour. What I didn't know, and wouldn't learn until much later, was that at that very moment, back in Happiness Base, Wang Dawei was sitting in his living room holding a name registry. His 2 right-hand men sat across from him, terrified. "Have you found her?" Wang Dawei tapped the table. "And not yet," one stammered. "We've posted messages on every channel, but Jiang Qingyue never responds to anyone. When the internet was up, she never messaged anyone. On the light brain, she's never posted a single word." Wang Dawei stared at them with eyes that were sharp and vicious, a disturbing contrast to his still pudgy face. "I told you to check with the big factions." He opened his light brain and looked at the survival index. 5th place, Jiang Qingyue. His voice went cold. "She's a woman. She can't have climbed to 5th alone. She must have found someone to protect her, using that decent face of hers. We checked all 46 significant factions in Quanshui City," one man insisted. "Supermarket leaders, neighborhood groups, street-level teams. We verified with every person in charge. None of them have a Jiang Qingyue. Could she be outside Quanshui City? The other ventured. Wang Dawe's face darkened. He said nothing. The longer the silence, the more the two men trembled. His wife came out of the kitchen with tea. If you can't find her, just let it go. Happiness Base is huge. One more person, one less person. What's the difference? She's just a fish seller, not some technical talent. Wang Dawe answered with a backhand slap that sent the small woman crashing to the floor, tea splashing everywhere. The two men on the couch didn't dare breathe. They sat like kindergartners, legs together, hands on knees, perfectly still. Intervene?
They weren't ready to die.
Men are talking. Don't interrupt, Wang Dawe said to his wife. Then he turned back to his men. Keep looking. Old Jiang once mentioned he had a brother. Find out if the brother is still alive. If so, he's Jiang Qingyue's relative. See if we can use him as bait to lure her out. Yes, sir. Also, have all her old customers, the ones who used to buy from her fish shop, try to contact her through any means possible. Flood the regional channel with messages from familiar names. Whoever finds out where she is, or gets her to join Happiness Base, gets a special item as reward. Yes, both men's fear vanished instantly. A special item could change everything. With one of those, they could leave Happiness Base, join another faction, or start their own. Anything was better than being Wang Dawe's dogs. After they left, Wang Dawe glanced at his wife sobbing in the kitchen, his expression completely flat, and walked into the bedroom. The room had been renovated, warm, clean, bright. He opened his bedside drawer and pulled out a photo album. He used to hide it. Now that he had power, he didn't care if his wife saw. He looked through it openly every day. He wiped the cover carefully and opened it. The first photo showed a girl in workout clothes and a sun hat. If I had seen that photo, I would have recognized myself. 18 years old, on a fishing trip with my dad by the river. Wang Dawe turned the pages. Every single photo was of me, running in the neighborhood garden, walking through town, killing fish at the shop. Hundreds of photos, from every angle, all secretly taken. After hauling out all the dirt bags, I still had time left, so I suited up and went out to chop trees. One swing, crack, a bowl-thick tree fell right over. That felt amazing. The Constitution potion had changed everything. Before, a tree that size would have taken forever to saw through. The cold had made the wood rock hard. Frozen sap and moisture turned pine into something almost diamond-like, brittle but incredibly tough. My old strength wasn't enough. The saw would bounce, the axe would barely dent it. Today, one chop, and done. A thicker tree, 2 chops.
Easy.
While splitting one tree, clink, a white thing popped out. I scrambled to catch it. A trade coin. Lucky me. I pocketed it happily. I chopped a few more trees, bundled everything up, and carried 5 times more than I ever could before. It still felt light. At this rate, I'd have mountains of firewood before the third cold wave. No need to worry at all. My good mood didn't last long. About 10 meters from the shelter, I spotted someone lying in the snow. They wore a white cold-weather suit that blended almost perfectly with the ground. If my eyesight hadn't improved with my constitution, I would have walked right past. I dropped flat and set my firewood down quietly. Before I could figure out what someone was doing in this middle-of-nowhere hillside, the person yelled at me. Stop hiding. I can see you.
Pink bunny ear hat. He'd spotted me.
But his voice sounded weak, like someone running on fumes even while shouting. I'm Yu, ranked 2nd on the combat power list. You should know who I am. Yu. Combat power 888. The 2nd strongest individual in the entire 8th trial zone. This was like being a level 1 newbie and bumping into the final boss. Hiding won't help. There are signs of activity around here, and there's a wrecked tricycle by the road. That's yours, right? There must be a shelter nearby. I'm injured. Take me to your shelter, and I'll protect you afterward. I froze internally. He said, there must be a shelter nearby, meaning he hadn't actually found the entrance. The door was only a few meters from where he lay, with a tent pitched right over it. How could he miss it? Unless he was too badly hurt to pay attention to his surroundings. That would explain why he'd been lying there yelling instead of just walking over and dragging me out. Combined with his weakening voice, I had a bold theory. He was seriously injured. So badly that he couldn't focus on anything but survival. That made me a little less afraid.
You're a woman, right?
With that pink hat, his voice came again. Look, don't be scared. I don't hit women. And you obviously don't have anything worth stealing. I'm not going to kill you. Just bring me to your shelter so I can rest. Once I recover, I'll let you be my woman. I stayed silent, listening. Don't tell me you want to be my wife? Humph. Trying to leverage saving me into something more? Being my mistress is already giving you face. Don't be greedy, then. Otherwise, when my brothers find me, you'll be a reward I hand out to them. That last sentence? That's when I sentenced him to death in my head. I'm a killer, remember? Thousands of fish and shrimp have died under my blade. And for self-preservation, I was willing to expand my range of targets. My hand found the axe. I gripped it, then let go. I knew better than anyone what special items could do. A man ranked second in combat power, even in his current state, was dangerous. I couldn't just rush him. I cleared my throat and called out in the most frightened, helpless voice I could manage. How do I know you're really Yu? He's the second strongest fighter in the world. How could someone that powerful get hurt and end up in the middle of nowhere? Open my light brain. It shows my name. Come here, and I'll let you see. I paused, then whimpered. You promise you won't kill me? I don't have anything valuable. I can't even afford the trading zone entry fee. I only have one trade coin. Who wants your pathetic one coin?
Just get over here.
I'm just dealing with hypothermia and a leg injury. Bring me to the shelter, let me recover. When my brothers arrive, you'll live in luxury. I guarantee, no matter how many women I have in the future, you'll have a place. I gripped my axe and started calculating. Could I just wait him out? I wasn't wearing professional cold weather gear, just my fur-lined boots, padded clothes, and faux fur coat. Good for about 2 hours outside. I'd already been out for 90 minutes. That left me 30 minutes max. Would he die in 30 minutes? And when would his brothers show up? I thought it over quickly and made my decision. I couldn't wait. I had to deal with him now, clean up all traces, and make sure the shelter stayed hidden. Time for acting. I want a special item. I whined. You're so strong. It must be easy for you to get them, right? Promise me you'll give me one later, and I'll save you. I was playing to his arrogance. Men like him looked down on weak, greedy people. If I acted pathetic and money-hungry, he wouldn't see me as a threat. From where he lay, Yu's face was bloodless. He had his injured leg pulled up against his stomach for warmth. After hearing my greedy demand, his eyes turned dark and murderous, but he swallowed it. A special item? That's nothing. I've given away several to my subordinates already. Help me once, become my woman, and you can pick any special item you want. Really? Okay, I'm coming. I picked up my axe, glanced at the pile of firewood, and grabbed just 10 or so pieces, a small bundle. Weak woman couldn't possibly carry more than that. I walked toward Yu, stumbling with every step, looking pathetic. While acting helpless, I studied him carefully. He was bundled up head to toe, couldn't see his face. He lay in an awkward position, his left leg twisted at a strange angle against his abdomen. A few feet from him, bright red blood stained the snow. A lot of it. In this cold, with that blood loss, even someone with 888 combat power had to be running on empty. Drop the firewood, he snapped when he saw me still clutching my little bundle. But I spent all day cutting it, I said pitifully, hugging the wood tighter. He was furious but held it in. I was probably the only person for miles, a timid, weak woman he could easily control. Someone who clearly worshipped his power. His only lifeline. He forced himself to sound gentle. Good girl. Stick with me, and you'll never have to do hard labor again. Where's your shelter?
Take me there.
I can't move right now. Good girl. I nearly gagged. I reluctantly set down the firewood. To lower his guard further, I put the axe down too. How heavy are you? Why does that matter? I can only carry about 60 pounds max. He realized a small woman like me couldn't possibly move a grown man in heavy gear. Where's your shelter? Close by. Right there. Then drag me over. Okay. I took 2 steps, then turned back. You'll definitely wait for me, right? He nearly rolled his eyes into his skull. He couldn't move. Where was he going to go? Yes, I'll wait. You're so sweet and obedient. I'll make you my highest-ranked woman after my wife. When I build my empire, I'll name you Imperial Consort. I shuddered. Not from cold, but from disgust. Back in school, being a mistress was what we cursed our enemies with. Now this man was offering it as a reward to the person saving his life. I shuffled toward the shelter, acting feeble, while my mind raced through options. From testing him, I confirmed his legs truly couldn't move, but his hands still had strength. Against an ordinary dying person, that wouldn't matter. Against the world's #2 fighter? I couldn't risk getting close. Back in the shelter, I dug through my supplies and pulled out 3 possible weapons. First, the stun baton. Problem: I'd have to get within arm's reach. He could snap my neck before I dropped him. Second, my compound bow. The most powerful legal weapon I'd bought. But I'd never practiced. My aim was terrible, and his professional cold-weather suit was even better quality than mine. Multiple layers would absorb the arrow's force. Third, my high-pressure water gun. Not an apocalypse weapon, it was from my fish shop, originally for hosing down floors. This is the one. I grabbed a bucket of tap water. It was stored near the stove, so it hadn't frozen. I stuck the hose into the bucket, picked up the spray nozzle in one hand and the bucket in the other, and walked out. No more pretending to stumble. I wasn't planning to get close. From a distance, Yu Yu heard the noise and turned his head. Before he could see what was coming, a massive jet of water blasted him square in the face. I emptied the entire bucket, soaking him from head to toe, making sure every inch of him was drenched. Then I grabbed the empty bucket and ran to a safe distance. For a normal person, someone like me before the Constitution potion, being soaked through in professional cold-weather gear, already hypothermic with an injured leg, would mean death within 2 minutes. Yu Yu was different. I had no idea how strong his constitution was. High combat power meant high physical resilience, which meant better cold resistance. But this spot was a wind tunnel. Soaked to the bone with freezing wind blasting him, even the world's second strongest fighter was going to die here. It was just a matter of how long he'd last. Yu Yu died much faster than I expected. I thought someone with that kind of combat power would last at least 10 or 15 minutes, even injured and soaked. He was completely still in under 2 minutes. I didn't dare go close. Instead, I opened my light brain and checked the combat power leaderboard. Number 1, Long Jiuxing. Number 2, Wang Dawei. Yu Yu's name was gone from the list entirely. He was dead for real. No time to waste. I ran back to the shelter and changed into my professional cold-weather gear. I'd need to be outside for more than 2 hours. I chugged a nutrient drink and stuffed some chocolates in my mouth for energy. Burying him on the spot would take too long. I decided to drag the body back to the shelter first. I grabbed him with one hand and hauled him back like catching a fish. The Constitution potion really was something. Before, I never could have moved a grown man. I tossed him in the coldest corner and sprinted to the roadside where my tricycle was parked. You had spotted it and guessed someone was living nearby. I grabbed a hammer and smashed the thing apart in minutes, then carried every piece back to the shelter. Thank God I'd expanded the space, or there would have been no room. Then I started erasing every trace of my existence. Starting from the road. Footprints weren't too bad. The frozen snow was like ice, and walking on it barely left marks. Any scratches I found, I poured water on. Seconds later, they froze over perfectly. The dirt pile I'd made from digging? I blasted it with the high-pressure water gun until it looked just like every other frozen mound around it. The hardest part was the tree chopping area. I'd been cutting trees for days, and the branches and pine needles were piled on top of the ice. Obviously recent, obviously human activity. I hauled every last branch and needle back to the shelter in bags. The tree stumps I'd cut low, so I poured water over each one. The frozen water turned white with bubbles, blending in with the snow underneath. Unless someone got on their hands and knees to inspect, they'd never notice. I cleaned the entire path between the forest and the shelter, pouring water on anything suspicious. Then I tore down the tent I'd worked so hard to set up over the shelter entrance. The stake holes got a splash of water too. Nothing a little ice couldn't fix. By the time I finished, I collapsed on the floor. The shelter was crammed wall to wall. Barely room to stand. But I couldn't rest yet. I shoved food in my mouth, peeled off the sweat-soaked cold-weather suit, wiped down, and lay on my bed to recover. I needed my strength back fast. What I didn't know was that 2 kilometers away, 4 large men in professional cold gear were following tracks along the road. They were Yu's brothers, tracing claw prints on the ice, apparently from some animal Yu had been chasing. They were heading in my direction. After 2 hours of rest, I forced myself awake even though my eyelids were heavy. I couldn't afford to sleep. I changed into clothes I could fight in. I moved several buckets of tap water near the stove to thaw, and got the high-pressure water gun ready. I placed the compound bow by the door and tucked the stun baton into my clothes. Then I pressed my ear against the door and listened. Nothing. The silence was maddening, but I didn't dare open the door to peek. What if one of Yu's men was standing right there? A door opening in a hillside with a head poking out would give everything away. After more waiting and another quick meal, I couldn't hold back anymore. I went to Yu's body and searched it thoroughly. In his inner pocket, I found a small bag of trade coins. I counted them, exactly 200. That's it. I was stunned. The world's second-ranked fighter only had 200 coins. No special items either. No weapons. Well, the cold-weather suit is nice at least. I took it to the stove to dry. I only had a few of these and never wore them for regular work. An unexpected bonus. Then I noticed his injured leg more closely. The wounds looked like
cat bites
and claw marks. I grew up with cats. I knew exactly what cat scratches and bites looked like. But what kind of cat could injure someone with 888 combat power? The leg was torn up badly, deep bites, flesh ripped apart. That's what caused all the blood loss. Definitely not a regular house cat. I filed that away and moved on. I pulled the light brain off Yu's wrist. For the first time ever, Xiaoyi spoke up without me asking. Detected 1 ownerless light brain. Would you like to merge? I blinked. You can merge them? Yes. Ownerless light brains can be merged. What do I get from merging? Everything in the other light brain becomes yours. Everything?
But what was even in a light brain?
It was basically just a chat tool. Trade coins were physical objects you held in your hands. There was no storage function. All items, even ones temporarily listed for trade, returned to the real world when the trading zone closed. The only things in a light brain were stats. My breathing quickened. Xiaoyi, when you say everything becomes mine, does that mean you use 888 combat power gets added to me? Yes. All stat increases from special items the previous owner used will transfer to the new owner through the merge. My heart was hammering. The good news, I was about to become incredibly powerful. The bad news, if other people discovered the secret, the 8th trial zone would descend into a bloodbath. It wouldn't just be about surviving the cold anymore. It would be about killing each other for light brains. Murder for stats would become the norm. Merge. Yu's light brain flew from my hand into the one on my wrist. A few seconds later, Xiaoyi confirmed success. I opened my personal panel with trembling fingers. Health, 86/100. Fullness, 99/100. Hydration, 93/100. Composite index, 1001. Trade coins, 210. I stared in silence for a long time. My composite index had jumped from double digits to 4 digits. Even the lucky star had only added 9 points. The Constitution potion hadn't been checked yet, but there was no way it accounted for this kind of leap. The real game changer was Yu's light brain. His 888 combat power meant his physical stats were enormous. Combined with the 200 trade coins I'd just acquired, which also boosted survival index, everything had stacked up. Over here, a rough voice filtered through the shelter door. My face went white. I forgot about studying my new stats. I crept to the door on silent feet. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear voices. Where did the boss go? The trail just stops. No idea. In this weather, he's been out long enough. If he couldn't catch that thing, he should have come back by now. Check the light brain. Did he send any messages? You don't think something happened to him, do you? Shut up. Yu Yu is the second strongest fighter in the world. What could possibly happen to him? It's just a white-furred little animal. Fast and sneaky, sure, but once the boss catches it, he'd crush it with one hand. They sounded close, very close. Maybe right where my tent used to be. I could barely breathe. 4 of them, from what I could tell. I'd just gotten much stronger, but I'd never been in a real fight. 4 against 1? I had no idea if I could win. And that white-furred animal they mentioned, the thing that had shredded Yu Yu's leg, it was apparently still somewhere nearby.
Great.
Even if I dealt with these 4, I'd have to watch out for that creature every time I went outside. Oh no, one of them shouted. I gripped my compound bow tighter.
What?
Stop yelling, you know the boss hates that. Something's wrong. His name, it's gone. Check the combat power leaderboard. He's not in the top 100 anymore, I thought grimly. Yeah, he's lying in my shelter right now. If dead men could talk, he'd probably complain they took too long. Impossible, someone said in disbelief. They were getting closer. Through masks in this weather, voices should have been muffled, but I could hear them clearly now. They might be standing right at my door. The compound bow wouldn't work at close range. I tiptoed over and picked up my big wood chopping axe. For close combat, nothing beat an axe. Look at the regional channel. I found a rescue message the boss posted earlier. Let me see. Footsteps. Moving away. I exhaled slightly. So the boss was injured. And none of us saw his message. The voices grew fainter, more muffled. I stayed frozen by the door, axe in hand. I couldn't help cursing the light brain's terrible design. No friend list. No way to find specific messages from specific people. Billions of people in the 8th trial zone, all dumping messages into the same world channel. Finding one person's post was like searching for a needle in the ocean. Even the regional channel for Quan Shui City had hundreds of thousands of people. Finding one message from one person was pure luck. Early on, when fewer people were posting, I could sometimes stumble across Wang Daoi's messages. But as activity picked up, even that became impossible. There were simply too many people. I gripped the axe tight. Now that Yu Yu is confirmed dead, his people would search the area carefully. Any small clue could lead them to my shelter. Through the door, I heard 4 men talking. Based on when the boss sent his distress message, it's been over 2 hours. A man as proud as him would never ask for help unless he was dying. His name is gone from the leaderboard. Not even in the top 100. You think he's... Nobody finished the sentence. They all knew. Minus 50 degrees, severely injured. Outside for over 2 hours. No one could survive that. And if Yu Yu with 888 combat power had simply dropped a few ranks, he'd still be in the top 100 easily. Complete disappearance meant only one thing. After a silence, someone suggested they split up to find the body. They all agreed, talking about how they owed everything to their boss and wanted to give him a proper burial. Then footsteps scattered and faded. But that didn't mean I was safe. I'd only cleaned up the evidence between the road and the shelter, plus my regular activity area. Wherever Yu Yu had walked before reaching the spot, I had no idea, and I couldn't clean that. His trail ended here. They'd come back and search more carefully. My dad had built this shelter door during his spare time, never expecting it to actually be needed. The camouflage worked at a glance, but it wouldn't hold up under close inspection. Then I heard footsteps approaching again.
2 people this time.
My heart jumped to my throat. Let's rest here for a bit. Have something to eat. Are we really okay just sitting here, second brother? What's the problem? The boss is definitely dead. You think those other 2 actually want to find the body for a burial? Don't make me laugh. They're looking for the light brain. The boss was so strong. Whoever merges his light brain gets an instant power boost. I nearly broke into a cold sweat behind the door. I'd thought I was the first person to discover the light brain merging secret. Turns out it was common knowledge. Of course it was. I was a loner, and I'd figured it out. What about people running massive factions? In a place like Happiness Base with tens of thousands of people, Wang Daoi's inner circle was well fed. Where did that food come from? Certainly not just from what he'd stockpiled before the apocalypse. He squeezed it from the ordinary people underneath him. Those ordinary people had nothing to start with. After Wang Dawei took what little they had, the outcome was obvious. Some froze. Some starved. And when they died, their light brains became ownerless. The system would prompt nearby survivors. Ownerless light brain detected. Merge. That's how the secret spread. The two men sat right outside my door, chatting and eating. Every word was crystal clear. Shouldn't we hurry and find it before those two do? Are you stupid? You think the light brain is easy to grab? That white-furred animal might be more dangerous than we thought. If it killed the boss, we'd just be adding ourselves to the menu. And if it wasn't the animal, if a person killed him, that person took down someone with 888 combat power. We'd be walking into a death trap. Besides, how do you know the killer doesn't already know about light brain merging? They probably stripped the boss clean already. Light brain, clothes, everything. There's nothing left to find. Why risk our lives? I was sweating. Every word they said was exactly what had happened. So we just do nothing. We rest here, eat, and head back. We tell the other two we searched the whole area and found nothing. Simple. I heard crunching, chips, and the sound of drinking water. About 15 minutes later, the one called second brother stood up. Let's go meet up with them. We'll say we checked everything, and it's time to head back before we freeze. Footsteps faded away. I finally exhaled. But I still didn't open the door. What if they'd noticed something and were trying to lure me out? The chance was tiny, but I only had one life.
No respawnarme.
I waited until it was dark. Checked my phone. The light brain didn't even have a clock function, that half-baked piece of junk. It was 10 at night. 3.5 hours since I'd locked myself in. Even if those men had enhanced their constitution with special items, combined with their travel time getting here, they'd have hit their physical limits by now. Even Long Jiuxing, ranked first, couldn't stay out this long. Whether they'd come back tomorrow was another question. But tonight, I was safe. My stomach was growling. I had no energy to cook, so I grabbed some nearly expired bread and a cup of hot water. The most pathetic meal I'd had since the apocalypse started. Shortly after, Xiao Yi chimed in with a reminder. Your monthly light brain rent is due by 11:59 tonight. If you don't pay, it'll be deactivated tomorrow. I'd completely forgotten. Pay it. 5 trade coins gone. I crawled into bed and checked the World Channel. Messages flew by impossibly fast. Most were factions recruiting people trying to trade supplies for special items or coins. All organized, large groups spamming the same message repeatedly just to be seen. Individual messages had zero chance of being noticed. They couldn't find what they wanted in the trading zone, so they're trying to trade offline. I understood the logic, but the success rate had to be terrible. People with special items wouldn't sell them unless they were literally starving. Travel was nearly impossible. Anything beyond a 2-hour walk was out of the question. And the people desperate enough to trade special items were the weakest ones. No enhanced body, no food, probably half-starved. Revealing their location for an in-person trade was basically asking to be robbed. Not my problem. I shook my head and switched to the Quanshui City channel. It was packed with messages too, especially from Happiness Base. The moment I opened it, I saw something unexpected. Lots of people with Happiness Base tags were looking for me. Looking for me? I was confused. These weren't my friends. Even my most loyal customers only knew me as the fish shop lady. Outside the shop, without my apron and rubber boots, they probably wouldn't recognize me on the street. We had zero personal contact. Why were so many of them suddenly searching for me? I was suspicious but didn't think too hard about it. Nobody would genuinely go out of their way to help a casual acquaintance during the apocalypse. They probably wanted something from me, maybe hoping my shop still had food. I couldn't help that many people even if I wanted to, so I ignored it all. No messages from Wang Dawei. Disappointing, but expected with all the spam flooding the channel. I opened the 3 leaderboards. Combat Power Ranking. Number 1. Long Jiuxing, female, 18, Combat Power 987. Number 2. Jiang Qingyue, female, 27, Combat Power 908. Number 3. Wang Dawei, male, 46, combat power 250. I'm ranked second. I'd expected it after the merge, but seeing my own name there still hit different. Then I did the math and grimaced. 888 came from Yu. That meant my original combat power was just 20. Pathetically low. Looking at the rest of the top 10, all the names were unfamiliar, but every single one had broken into 3-digit combat power. Not long ago, everyone from third place down was hovering around 80. Now the lowest in the top 10 was well over 100. The rapid increases must be from light brain merging. It wasn't hard to figure out. Special items were too rare to explain this kind of growth across so many people. The only way everyone was getting stronger this fast was by killing others and absorbing their light brains. Even a weak person's light brain would add something. Kill enough, and the numbers stack up. New forces ranking. Number 1, Happiness Base, Wang Dawei. Number 2, Hope Base, Huang Yali. Number 3, Ice Squad, Wang Longhua. Number 4, Jiang Qingyue's Little Nest, Jiang Qingyue. I made the list too. This surprised me even more than the combat ranking. My faction was just a name I typed as a joke, Population 1. And it had climbed to 4th place. No bonus for making the leaderboard though, I grumbled. Cheap main god. Survival Index ranking. Number 1, Wang Dawei, Survival Index 241. Number 2, Jiang Qingyue, Survival Index 240. Number 3, Huang Yali, Survival Index 180. Honestly, this was lower than I expected. Not the rank, 2nd place was fine. But the number. My personal composite index was already over 1001. That factored in combat power, supplies, safety, everything. I figured my survival index would be at least 800. Instead, only 240. 2 other things caught my attention. Long Jiuxing, the combat power leader, almost at 1000, had never appeared on the other 2 leaderboards. Not once. That was very strange. With combat power that high, even a solo player should show up somewhere. I was solo, and I'd made both lists. But Long Jiuxing was invisible outside of combat rankings.
Something was off about that.
The other surprise was Huang Yali finally appearing on the survival index list. As Hope Base's leader, she'd been on the faction ranking since day 1. But she'd never shown up on the survival index before. Now she debuted in 3rd place. That meant her situation used to be bad, so bad that her survival odds were too low to rank. Something must have changed recently for the better. Xiao Yi, why is my survival index so low? You take too many risks, you have no friends or family for mutual support, no subordinates, no emergency medical knowledge, and you lack essential skills like power generation, greenhouse construction, and farming. I couldn't believe it. I take risks? Are you kidding me? I'd literally hidden myself away in a shelter in the middle of nowhere. Xiao Yi had her evidence ready. You frequently go outside in extreme weather and fought someone with much higher combat power. Both are considered very risky behaviors. I mean, technically yes, but those were survival necessities, not thrill-seeking. Still, her answer gave me useful information. Power generation, greenhouse building, and farming were apparently essential skills. That meant after the 3rd cold wave, not having these skills would cause me serious problems. Sleep could wait. I pulled out my phone and started searching through my downloaded files. My knowledge in these areas was basically zero. I knew vague concepts like hydroelectric and wind power, but actually building a generator from scratch?
No clue.
After 2 hours of searching, I found something workable: steam power generation. Hydroelectric would be better since it wouldn't burn fuel, but every river I knew of was frozen solid at -50. I had no idea if underground rivers existed nearby, and no way to search for them. Wind power was too complicated. Steam was my only realistic option. The downside was it required burning fuel, which meant constant tree chopping and smoke that could reveal my location. But being discovered beat freezing to death. I just need to figure out how to deal with the smoke. I searched more and found 2 solutions. The first was building a secondary combustion smoke reduction furnace. I studied the instructions carefully. Not that difficult, just time-consuming. The second was burying a long pipe to channel smoke into the mountainside. I preferred the first option. Simpler to build, and it didn't require digging a long tunnel through frozen ground. I listed the materials I needed: a metal canister, electrical wire, stones, clay, hardwood, bearings, and, most importantly, a battery. Luckily, I'd bought batteries before. The bearings I could scavenge from the dismantled tricycle. Looking over my list, I only needed one thing I didn't have: a metal canister. Everything else was already in the shelter. Power generation isn't that hard after all. I was about to drift off to sleep when I sat bolt upright like a zombie rising from the grave. Wait, don't I have a metal canister? I leaped out of bed and tore through my supply piles until I pulled out a dry powder fire extinguisher. It wasn't something I'd bought for the apocalypse. I'd kept it at the fish shop as a safety precaution. The shop was cluttered, with cardboard boxes everywhere and old electrical wiring. Fire hazard central. I'd never used it, and the quality was excellent. If I modify this, it could work. Forget sleep. I started working immediately. I didn't even feel tired, probably because my combat power had increased so dramatically. What I didn't realize while I was busy tinkering was that the outside world had exploded. My sudden appearance near the top of all 3 leaderboards, more dramatic than even Wang Daoi's rise, had set off a firestorm. Yu Yu's men had noticed that his disappearance from the combat rankings coincided perfectly with my appearance in second place. They started flooding the World Channel, calling me a murderer, demanding I show myself and explain. Their constant shouting did something far more destructive than they intended. It exposed the secret of light brain merging to everyone. The fact that killing someone and taking their light brain let you absorb all their accumulated stats, this was no longer insider knowledge. The revelation hit like a bomb. Before this, only a select few knew, lucky individuals who'd stumbled on it, and faction leaders who'd been quietly using it to grow stronger while keeping their mouths shut. Those leaders knew the secret would eventually get out, but they wanted every possible head start. Now the lid was blown off. People started connecting dots. Those base members who'd mysteriously disappeared. The ones who'd supposedly frozen to death, even though conditions weren't that extreme. They'd been murdered, killed for their light brains. Even in the middle of the night, every channels went insane with the revelation. Meanwhile, back at Happiness Base, Wang Dawei called an emergency meeting. His living room was packed with over 30 of his men sitting in rows. His wife served them water and food like a servant, occasionally getting snapped at by the underlings. 2 pretty young women sat on either side of Wang Dawei. He didn't respect his own wife, so naturally his men didn't either. Despite her husband becoming the most famous man in Quanshui City, she'd gotten nothing from it except being demoted to everyone's maid. Once the men finished eating, Wang Dawei spoke. Yu Yu was from Quanshui City. Nobody's traveling between cities in this weather. He was killed by someone local. Based on Jiang Qingyue's sudden ranking surge, she definitely took his light brain and merged it. He glared at the men assigned to find me. She's somewhere in this city. You've mobilized dozens of people and found nothing. Not even a hair. We've checked every faction, every small base, every loose group. We went door to door. She's not with any of them. Then keep looking. Turn this city upside down. Also, stop having those old customers post messages looking for her. They've been at it for 2 days. If she's seen them and isn't responding, more posts won't help. So that's why all those familiar people were looking for me on the regional channel. Wang Dawei was behind it. He was using my old customers as bait. Contact Yu Yu's brothers. They must know approximately where he died. Once we have the general area, we'll find her. After handling that, Wang Dawei turned to another subordinate. Any news on the team sent to kill Long Jiuxing? Boss, I think they've all been eliminated. I've sent over a dozen waves. Not one person has come back. They're not on the leaderboards either, so I can't confirm if they're dead or captured. Keep sending people. The subordinate hesitated. Boss, maybe we should wait. Get better weapons first. Let our guys get stronger. She's too powerful. Sending more is just feeding her. His concern wasn't really for his men. The real problem was that the rank and file were on the verge of revolt. Secretly making people disappear was one thing. Openly sending men to certain death was another. The resentment was becoming dangerous. And if things boiled over, Wang Dawei would probably use the rebellion as an excuse to kill the dissenters and take their light brains, but by then, this subordinate would already be dead. I said, keep sending people. If you can't kill her, harass her constantly. Don't let her rest. Is that unclear? Yes, sir. The man swallowed hard and didn't argue further. Wang Dawei was seething internally. He'd expected his rebirth to make him the undisputed king. Instead, things kept going wrong. In his previous life, I had been nobody, just the fish shop girl. He'd planned to wait until the apocalypse left me starving and freezing, then swoop in with a scrap of food and claim me. But when the apocalypse hit, I'd vanished.
Gone.
And he couldn't find me no matter how hard he searched. The whole city, every corner checked. Where could I possibly be hiding? He looked at the two girls beside him. One had eyes that looked like mine. The other had a chin shaped like mine. That's why they were there. But they were just substitutes. He couldn't get the real thing, and it ate at him. Then there was his grudge against Yu. In his previous life, Yu had killed him, slowly, painfully, cut by cut. He'd been reborn burning for revenge. He knew Yu lived in Quanshui City, but could never find his exact address. He planned to use his power after the apocalypse to track him down. But before he could find Yu, I'd killed the man first. And I discovered the light brain merging secret, vaulting into the top ranks of all 3 leaderboards. On the survival index, I was breathing down his neck, 240 to his 241. One slip, and I'd overtake him. Furious, Wang Dawei kicked his stone tea table so hard it shattered. Everyone in the room flinched. He restrained himself from lashing out further. He tried going after Long Jiuxing himself, but knew he'd fail. Better to be patient. He was a reborn person with knowledge of the future. He had plenty of chances to grow stronger. No need to fight to the death this early. He gave his final orders. Recruit every faction in Quanshui City. Big, small, even solo players. Anyone who refuses, deal with them the usual way. A pause. For Long Jiuxing, stop sending strong fighters. If she kills them and takes their light brains, she just gets stronger. Send the dying ones instead. People who are about to expire anyway. Use them to harass her non-stop. Why, boss? Don't ask questions you shouldn't ask. Yes, sir. The men scattered into the freezing night, pulling on their cold weather gear the moment they stepped outside Wang Dawei's warm house. Their bodies weren't nearly as strong as his. Exposed skin would get frostbitten in seconds. And in Happiness Base, there was no mercy for the injured. These managers were no different from the slaves beneath them. The moment they couldn't work, their fate would be worse than the ordinary people's. Wang Dawei told his wife to clean up the mess, then took the 2 girls into the bedroom. In his rush, he didn't see the hatred in his wife's eyes as the door closed. Or maybe he saw it and simply didn't care. That night was apocalyptic for the 8th trial zone, worse than any cold wave. The light brain merging secret changed everything. Desperate people decided to gamble. But everyone was trapped indoors. The only people within reach were family members and teammates. Even those who had no intention of killing couldn't sleep anymore. Before, families huddled together for warmth. Now people would rather freeze than close their eyes with someone nearby. In just a few hours, countless people's power surged. Countless others were erased from existence forever. Some of the fallen were top 100 ranked fighters on the leaderboards. Morning came. July 2nd. Day 10 of the apocalypse. The leaderboards had been completely reshuffled. Names disappeared. New names appeared. Everyone knew how they got there. Nobody said a word. Since the apocalypse began, the World Channel and every regional channel had been noisy, with constant chatter. Today, for the first time, there was total silence. Not a single message.
No factions posting.
No solo players speaking. The world felt like someone had pressed pause. Dead silence. During a break, I opened the light brain and saw the World Channel and Regional Channel. I scrolled down, and my finger stopped. Silence. Everywhere. Not a single message. I stared for a long time, then closed it and went back to wrestling with my steam generator. Even with detailed instructions on my phone, I was a complete amateur. Mistakes kept happening. But every problem could be solved if not on the first try, then the second or the third. however many it took. Day 1. I dug out an area and built a stone foundation for the power station, packing it tight and leveling it carefully. Day 2. I shaped the furnace chamber, sealed every gap between stones with clay so it wouldn't leak air or fire. Day 3. I cut and sanded hardwood into the right sizes, built a three-dimensional frame to support the boiler, drive shaft, and generator. Everything had to be solid and stable. Day 4. I took apart the fire extinguisher, cleaned out the leftover chemical powder, and converted it into a simple pressure boiler. Day 5. I positioned the modified canister over the furnace, secured it with a wooden frame, sealed the joints with clay, and did my first leak test.
Day
6. I pulled out the bearings from the dismantled tricycle, ground down the shaft connections, and since I had time left, I finished building the secondary combustion smoke reduction furnace. Day 7. I connected the bearings and drive shaft to the boiler's power output and the generator. Day 8. I laid out the basic wiring, connecting the generator, output terminals, and completing the full electrical circuit. Day 9. I checked every seal on the furnace and boiler, ran multiple test cycles, and fixed every jam and leak I found.
Day 10.
July 12th. Day 20 of the apocalypse. Time to see if this actually works. I took a deep breath and stuffed all the pine needles, small branches, and wood shavings I'd collected while cleaning up my tracks into the furnace. Lit it with a lighter. The stuff burned fast, but I had plenty. I sat beside it, feeding wood into the furnace over and over. I lost count of how many times I added fuel. Finally, the water boiled. Foggy steam rose from the top of the canister, and this ugly, cobbled-together, barely recognizable generator sputtered to life. It was producing electricity, flowing straight into my battery. Since the apocalypse started, this battery had been my only power source, lighting the shelter, occasionally running my little electric pot. I'd also bought a small diesel generator as backup, but it was loud and I didn't have much diesel, so I'd never used it. Now I had a renewable power source. As long as I had wood and the mountains were covered in trees, I could generate electricity.
The diesel could be saved.
I watched the battery's display while feeding the fire. Charging efficiency, about 8%. Not very stable. I did the math. Roughly 2 kilowatt-hours per day at this rate. That's really low. The instructions said I should get around 12%. Something was off in my build, but I couldn't figure out where. I'd followed every step. Then I checked how much power I actually used. The main drain was the shelter's lights, especially when I was digging and had to carry a lamp around. My phone barely counted. I only used it for checking information and time, and one charge lasted days. The electric pot was basically retired since I cooked everything on the stove now. I had 4 battery packs. Each held 6 kilowatt-hours when full. The one I'd been using for 20 days had only consumed 2 kilowatt-hours, including those early days when I'd used the electric pot. 4 kilowatt-hours remained. One more day of charging, and it would be full. I laughed out loud. At first I'd thought the efficiency was terrible. 2 kilowatt-hours a day. Garbage. But then I realized my consumption was ridiculously low. One day of generating power covered 20 days of use. The other 19 days of production had literally nowhere to go. Maybe I should do something with the extra power?
Like
build a greenhouse and grow vegetables? I hadn't bought seeds. When I was stockpiling supplies, growing vegetables in an ice apocalypse seemed impossible for someone like me. But I'd seen people selling seeds in the trading zone. Next time it opened, I could look for some. Fresh vegetables have to taste better than vitamin pills. I had a vague idea about using grow lights as a substitute for sunlight, watering on schedule, adding fertilizer. But actually constructing a greenhouse inside the shelter?
no clue.
No problem. I pulled out my phone again and searched through my downloads. Found what I needed almost immediately. Thank you, PassMe, for being so smart. If I hadn't gone on that downloading frenzy before the internet died, I'd be completely lost right now. I ate while reading, added wood to the fire periodically, and the busy day flew by. By coincidence, right when I'd burned through all the collected pine needles and small branches, the battery hit full charge. I let the fire die out. No more generating for the next couple days. This was just a test run. I wasn't short on electricity, and my firewood reserves weren't huge yet. Priority 1 was still chopping more wood for the third cold wave. I'd generate power again when this battery started running low.
Good mood tonight.
Plus, it had been almost a month since my last real bath. I went outside, chipped off some ice, melted a big pot of hot water, and scrubbed myself from head to toe. Put on clean clothes. Used the leftover bath water to wash my crusty work outfit, then hung it by the stove to dry. With my body stronger now, I wasn't as stingy with water. Most importantly, I wasn't afraid of getting sick anymore. Before the Constitution potion, even if I could heat water, I wouldn't have dared bathe. The shelter sat at -8 to keep the frozen food safe. At my old physical level, one bath at that temperature meant guaranteed illness. Now I actually felt a bit warm afterward. I lay in bed and checked the 3 leaderboards. A lot had changed in 10 days. New forces ranking. I dropped from 4th to 11th. Other factions had grown faster. Combat power. No change in the top 3. Long Jisheng first, me second, Wang Dawei third. But both of them had gotten stronger. Long Jisheng had broken 1,000, the first person in the 8th trial zone to do it. All I could say was, incredible. Wang Dawei had climbed to 580. Survival Index, number 1. Jiang Qingyue, Survival Index 280. Number 2. Wang Dawei, Survival Index 279. Number 3. Huang Yali, Survival Index 191. I'm first. I blinked. Just last night I'd been second. Now I'd passed Wang Dawei, the reborn man himself. I looked at my ridiculous Frankenstein generator. Making electricity is worth that much. Yesterday, I was at 240. Today, after successfully producing power, I jumped by 40 points. That was more than the Lucky Star had given me. That only added 9. The implications hit me immediately. If power generation alone added 40 points, then the other things Xiao Yi had mentioned, greenhouse farming, medical skills, must be equally critical. They were all important for surviving the third cold wave, even if I didn't fully understand why yet. Right now, fire seemed far more useful than electricity. Fire provided warmth, melted ice for water, cooked food, and gave light. Electricity seemed like a luxury by comparison. But I'd learned my lesson. I don't need to understand why. I just need to do it. I yawned, propped my legs on a folded blanket, and closed my eyes in my thin sleepwear. I fell asleep quickly. Wang Dawei, however, could not. What I didn't know was that over these 10 days, Wang Dawei had been spiraling. His home was a wreck, ashtrays, cups, bowls, all shattered across the floor. His remaining subordinates stood before him, more terrified than ever. He paced his living room, seething. You're all useless. I told you to harass Long Jisheng. Keep her from resting. She's sickly. If she can't recover in peace, she'll die on her own. And what happened? Nobody spoke. Long Jisheng had broken 1,000 in combat power. Everyone knew that meant her body was getting stronger. Even if she really was ill, at this rate she'd eventually become healthy through sheer stat growth. One subordinate tried to speak. Boss, I promise. Wang Dawei kicked him so hard the man crumpled to the floor.
Dead.
580 combat power behind that kick. The room went rigid with terror. Still furious, Wang Dawei turned to another man. And you. I told you to get Jiang Qingyue's location from Yi's people. 10 days. Where is she? The man's legs buckled and he dropped his knees, landing on broken glass. Boss, I tried everything. Only 4 people knew where you went. After they got back, they started fighting each other for control. All 4 died in the power struggle. The remaining people only knew you had gone out. They had no idea where. The trail is dead. Wang Dawei erupted. Excuses. This city is only so big. She can't have grown wings and flown away. She's number 1 on the survival index now. 280. Do you know what that means? It means she already has what she needs to survive the third cold wave. His voice cracked. I don't even have that. Wang Dawei was falling apart. It wasn't just about finding me. It was about his failure as a reborn person. Nothing he'd planned had worked out. He looked powerful on the surface, but he knew Happiness Base was a house of cards. His early growth had come from being one step ahead of everyone, knowing things before they happened, quietly eliminating people and stealing their light brains before anyone understood the system. Now, everyone knew. People traveled in groups. Making someone disappear wasn't easy anymore. And his subordinates were getting stronger, combat power in the hundreds and climbing. He could still beat them one-on-one, but how long before 5 or 6 of them teamed up against him? He'd squeezed every person in Happiness Base mercilessly. They all hated him. The moment they were strong enough, they'd come for his head. He had 2 options: share power and slow his own growth, or be killed. He couldn't stop them from growing stronger either. Other factions were watching. If he eliminated all his strong fighters, he'd have no army, just himself protecting a base of weaklings. And after the third cold wave, when powerful people could move freely between cities, a lonely dictator with no strong subordinates would be crushed by the first large faction that came knocking. Every path led to the same place. "Get out," he finally screamed, afraid he'd kill everyone in the room if they stayed another second. After they left, he stared at my name on the leaderboard, reading it over and over. "What technology do you have?" he muttered. "What did you figure out?" He knew I didn't have real medical skills. The basic first aid most people knew, sloppy CPR, simple bandaging, didn't count for anything in an extreme cold apocalypse. Did she somehow save a senior doctor? Or did she get lucky and find a special item, something like a plant doctor? He couldn't figure it out. And that aided him most of all. July 13th. Day 21 of the apocalypse. Jiang the miner was back on the clock. I swung my pickaxe and dug like crazy while thinking about how messy the shelter had become. Firewood mixed with food, supplies piled everywhere with no organization. Every time I needed something, I had to dig through everything. Worse, some frozen food was stored too close to the stoves and might thaw. It was time to plan things properly. Before, the shelter was too small, and I was too rushed to organize anything. Now it was different. With my increased strength, I could expand 20 square meters a day easily. I should build some simple wooden shelves and sort everything by category. Move the frozen stuff far from the heat. And I need to section off a separate area for a greenhouse. The more I thought about it, the more urgent it felt. I'd also been analyzing why nothing sold at the last trading zone. Probably too few people had enough trade coins for the entry fee. The big faction leaders had plenty of coins but didn't need ordinary supplies. They could get those in the real world through other methods. And the trading window was only 1 hour. I wasn't famous like Wang Dawei, so most people probably never even clicked on my stall. But vegetables would be different. According to Xiao Yi, power generation, greenhouse farming, and medical skills were major advantages for the third cold wave. I'd already figured out electricity. Growing vegetables was the next logical step, and unlike electricity, vegetables could actually be sold in the trading zone. Growing anything in this environment would be incredibly hard. You needed soil, temperature control, light, and seeds. Outside was nothing but frozen ground. Weak people couldn't even chip through the ice layer. The temperature was killing people at -50, and the third wave might bring -100. Keeping things warm enough for plants to grow would cost enormous resources. Very few could pull it off. If I could, I'd be one of the rare suppliers. Trade vegetables for coins, use coins for special items. A healthy cycle. Lucky, found another one. A tiny trade coin glinted in the lamplight, almost invisible. My improved eyesight caught it. Into the little box it went. I kept digging, bagging dirt, hauling it outside. Ate whenever I was hungry, 5 meals today, no holding back. Does getting stronger make you eat more? I counted what I'd consumed. It was double my normal amount. But then I looked at the room-sized space I'd carved out in one day, 10 times what I used to manage, and I wasn't even that tired. Before, 2 cubic meters left me aching everywhere. Now, 20 cubic meters barely made my arms sore. Sleep time. More tomorrow. The next 2 days were all digging. 3 straight days of expansion gave me about 70 cubic meters of new space. On the 4th day, I organized everything. It took the whole day, but I divided the shelter into 6 zones. Zone 1. Deep cold storage. The deepest part of the shelter, farthest from any heat. All the frozen seafood and meat from my shop went here. Fish, shrimp, crab, shellfish, poultry, sliced meats, meatballs, all sorted by type, stacked tight. Zone 2. Dry food storage. Everything non-frozen. Compressed biscuits, bread, vitamins, candy, dried fruit, dehydrated vegetables, sealed rice, flour, oil, seasonings, drinking water. Zone 3. Tools and equipment. Axes, chainsaw, shovels, chisels, hammers, rope, stones, clay, wood planks, pipes, bearings, sheet metal. Everything for building and maintaining. Zone 4. Living area. Right inside the entrance. A small stone slab bed on the right, about 1.5 meters long, topped with a thick wooden board and a fuzzy mat. The stove nearby, plus a small cabinet with my everyday pots, bowls, and seasonings. Zone 5. Fuel and power. The steam generator sat here alongside all the firewood, coal, and smokeless charcoal. Zone 6. My bedroom. Currently the smallest zone. I planned to make it my private space, but after arranging everything else, there wasn't much room left. For now it just held my clothes, the trade coin box, my phones, and personal items. Tomorrow I'd expand the bedroom. The day after, I'd chop wood and build myself a proper bed, big, stable, one I could toss and turn on without worrying about falling off. The current bed in the living area was okay but dusty from stove smoke. It creaked with every move, and sleeping where I cooked felt wrong. I had the strength and the know-how now. No reason to keep roughing it. This shelter might be my home for the rest of my life, so I might as well make it comfortable. That evening, I opened the Light Brain and found the Quanshue City channel being flooded with a single repeating message from Happiness Base members. Jiang Qingyue, your second Uncle Jiang Mitian, is at Happiness Base waiting for you. He's dying. Thousands of people with Happiness Base tags, all spamming the same line. I stared at it, genuinely confused. I have a second uncle. I had no idea. Mom and Dad never mentioned one. No visits, no phone calls, nothing in all the years I'd been alive. Maybe it's someone with the same surname, but it's Happiness-based people posting this. That's a pretty big coincidence. Maybe I really do have an uncle who knew I lived near Happiness neighborhood and came looking for me, but that doesn't make sense either. Before the apocalypse, even if he lived abroad and couldn't visit, a phone call was easy. And why did my parents never once mention him? I watched the message repeat over and over. Then I closed the Light Brain. Whatever. If my parents never told me about him, they had their reasons. I didn't buy the dying uncle story. Someone who didn't show up for decades doesn't suddenly remember his niece during the apocalypse. He wasn't there when my parents were injured. He wasn't there when they died. His number wasn't in their phones. Probably just someone with the same surname. Jiang Qingyue is a common enough name. Light Brain off. Head on pillow. Tomorrow, expand the bedroom. Day after, chop trees and build a big bed. Day after that, I planned out my schedule and drifted into dreams. What I didn't know was that back at Happiness Base, Wang Dawei was losing his temper at a family of 3 sitting across from him. The middle-aged man was Jiang Mitian, apparently my father's brother. You said she'd definitely respond if you told her you were dying. Where is she? I had tens of thousands of people spam the channel all day. She didn't reply once. Jiang Mitian cowered. Boss, maybe she just saw the message and doesn't believe it yet. We haven't been in contact for decades. His wife jumped in with a new idea. What if we change the message? Say we have special items and trade coins. Say we're childless and dying, and we want to pass everything to our niece. People are greedy. She's probably struggling, maybe selling herself for scraps of food. If we mention special items, she'll come running. Or at least tell us where she is. Wang Dawei listened, growing more frustrated. He silently cursed the timing of my parents' death. If they were alive, he could have used them as leverage. Hold the parents, control the daughter. But they were gone, and this useless uncle was a poor substitute. His eyes drifted past the couple to the young woman behind them, Jiang Mitian's daughter. My cousin apparently. About 20, plain-looking, hunched, and timid. He'd hoped she might resemble me, being family. Not even close. His 2 pet birds at home looked more like me than this girl. Disgusted, he waved them away. A subordinate settled the family in a cramped room near the bathroom in an overcrowded apartment, a household where the original residents had all died. Stay put. Try to run, and we'll break your legs. Cooperate, and when Jiang Qinghua shows up, you'll live well. Jiang Mitian bowed and scraped, promising to keep messaging me nonstop. After her parents left to schmooze with the other residents, the daughter, Jiang Qingtian, closed the door and opened her light brain. She hesitated for a long time. She couldn't post anything in the Quanshui City channel. Everything was tied to real names. If she warned me directly, she'd be dead by morning. But she couldn't stand by and watch her parents lure me into a trap. Wang Dawei's snake-like eyes made it obvious. Whatever he wanted me for, it wasn't good. After agonizing over every word, she posted one message on the World Channel. My father Jiang Mitian and I have joined Happiness Base. Leader Wang Dawei has been very kind to our family of 3. We're well-fed, warmly dressed, and healthy. Thank you, Happiness Base. She chose each word carefully. She couldn't say it's a trap or don't come. She could only state that the 3 of them were alive and healthy, contradicting the "your uncle is dying" story being spammed on the regional channel. If I saw both messages, I'd realize the dying story was a lie. I'd know it was a trap. Whether I'd see it among the millions of messages on the World Channel. She had no idea. I hope my cousin is lucky enough to find this. She had no other way to help. I didn't see it. I spent most of my days working. In my rare free moments, I studied greenhouse construction on my phone. The light brain only got a brief look before bed, and what I saw was pure luck. The next day, I expanded the bedroom to about 30 cubic meters, with a ceiling height of 170, just enough that I wouldn't bump my head. Then I spent a full day chopping trees, sawing planks, and building a proper wooden bed using traditional joint construction. I didn't care that the fresh wood would crack later. I was too eager. I moved my bedding from the old stone slab into the new room, ran 2 electrical wires in, hung a light bulb, and even installed a switch by the doorway, even though there was no actual door. That evening, I made myself a huge pot of blanched seafood, mantis shrimp, slipper lobster, sea snails, mussels, a full pot. I peeled shells with practiced hands, dipped each piece in a little bowl of garlic and chili, and the freshness was so intense I could have swallowed my tongue. After cleaning up, I put on thin pajamas and flopped face down on my brand new 6-foot bed. Lying there, I thought, maybe the apocalypse isn't as terrible as I imagined. At least there's still something to look forward to. Building the steam generator gave me a huge confidence boost, so I jumped straight into preparing a greenhouse. Temperature was the easiest part. I just needed to dig a separate room in the shelter and run pipes from the power station. The heat from generating electricity would flow through the pipes into the growing room. 2 birds with 1 stone. Light wasn't a problem either. I'd bought plenty of light bulbs, and I could generate my own electricity. Grow lights could replace sunlight just fine for photosynthesis. Nutrients were trickier. I was one person. I couldn't produce much natural fertilizer, and honestly, using my own felt gross. I'd only do that as a last resort. Wood ash was another option, and I'd have tons of it from burning firewood for the generator. But ash alone wasn't enough. I made a note in my little notebook. The trading zone reopened in just a few days on August 1st. When it did, besides special items, my top priority was seeds and fertilizer, urea, nutrient solutions, whatever plants needed to grow. I spent a full day digging out a 30 square meter room for the greenhouse. A bit small. Enough for personal use, but not enough to sell. Whatever, I'll experiment first and expand later. Then I built the heating system. I lined the entire room with pipes arranged in a neat grid pattern, like opening a fresh handwriting practice book with perfect squares. Every little plot would be surrounded by heating pipes, giving each future vegetable its own warm little home. I modified the power room so that heat and smoke from burning wood would first pass through the growing room via the pipes before exiting. This actually made my secondary smoke reduction furnace unnecessary. The smoke completely dissipated after passing through the planting room. Not a wisp would escape outside. Nice work. I admired my creation. I'd unlocked yet another skill. Mason. Sure, the clay and stone pipes would crack over time, but a little mud patch would fix them right up. Good enough. Now back to chopping wood. I headed outside with my tools, feeling worried. At -50, most trees were already dead except for the hardiest species. I was lucky the hills around my shelter were covered in pine, extremely cold-resistant. But even pine might not survive the third cold wave. Dead trees don't grow back. Every one I cut would be gone forever. I'll have to walk farther and farther to find trees. I sighed and kept my eyes open while chopping. I hadn't forgotten about that white-furred creature that had shredded Yu's leg. If it could hurt him, it could hurt me. Luckily, I didn't see any animals all day. Not white, not black, nothing. That evening I came home both sighing and smiling. My chopping speed was many times faster than before. Just one day's work filled every remaining inch of the shelter with firewood. Tomorrow, I'd need to expand again just to have somewhere to put more. After all this expansion, the shelter was roughly 120 square meters now, bigger than my old apartment after you subtracted the shared hallway space. What to eat tonight? I went with beef noodles. Grabbed a vacuum-sealed pack of beef slices from the frozen section, technically frozen for about a month, so not exactly fresh, but still good. I'd cut and pack them myself, 1 pound per bag. 1 pound of dried noodles plus 1 pound of beef made a huge bowl, topped with dehydrated vegetables and seasonings. Slurped it all down. Still only 90% full, so I grabbed a nearly expired bread roll. Still room after that, so I chased it with a bottle of milk. Finally stuffed to capacity, I flopped onto my bed. Food coma hit, so hard I fell asleep without even checking the light brain. The next morning, the food coma was gone, and I was hungry again. My digestion had become incredible. My rice bowl had gone from palm-sized to rice cooker-sized. 2 more days of digging. I used up every single bag I'd prepared before the apocalypse before finally opening the door to haul dirt outside. And that's when I froze. Firewood. Piles of it. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. Still there. Stacks and stacks of neatly arranged logs at my doorstep, cut to the same length as mine, but these were unsplit round logs, carefully lined up. I slammed the door shut, grabbed my weapons, compound bow, stun baton, big axe, and cautiously opened the door again. Chee-chee, chee-chee, a small, rapid chirping sound. I followed it with my eyes and saw, a short distance away, a tiny white ball of fluff carrying a log several times its own size, waddling toward me. Every muscle in my body tensed. This had to be the white creature that injured you. It seemed to sense my fear and stopped walking. It pointed its front paw at the log it was carrying, chirping non-stop. I had no idea what it was saying, but it didn't seem hostile. I looked at the bite marks on the nearby logs. They matched the wounds on Yu's legs perfectly. So you chewed all of these with your teeth. This thing? I was skeptical. It was barely bigger than an adult's palm. Scrawny and tiny, like a newborn bunny. Hard to believe something this small had gnawed this much wood in 2 days and hauled it all to my door. The little creature saw I wasn't moving, tilted its head, then adjusted the log's angle and pushed it so it rolled right to my doorstep. Then it started chirping again, with its front paws waving frantically. I don't understand, I said. It got frustrated. It pointed at the pine forest where I always chop trees, then at the neat pile of logs at my door, then at its own belly. The light bulb finally went on. You're saying, you'll chop wood for me and I feed you, chee-chee-chee-chee-chee-chee. It nodded so fast its whole body bounced. In its tiny green bean eyes, I saw pure joy. Like it was saying, finally, you dense human. I didn't agree or refuse. My brain was doing rapid calculations. Based on the pile of wood, its chopping speed was at least as fast as mine. The only slow part was carrying. It was so small it could only move 1 log at a time, running who knows how many trips. But feeding it? This thing was palm-sized. A tiny amount of food would probably stuff it full. What was this deal? A ton of firewood for 2 ounces of rice. Where would I ever find labor this cheap? The catch was its combat power. You couldn't beat it. I was only slightly stronger than you. I probably couldn't beat it either. But did I really have a choice? Refusing meant making an enemy. I couldn't chase it away. It was so small it could hide anywhere in the white snow, and I'd never find it. Meanwhile, It could lurk nearby and ambush me anytime. One hit might be all it took. Better to have a friend than an enemy. Deal, I said quickly. But you can't hurt me, and I won't hurt you. We live in peace. No fighting, no biting, no scratching. Chi-Chi. It nodded.
Great.
Wait here while I get you some food. I didn't know what it liked, so I grabbed a bread roll, a pack of salmon, and some dried fruit and vegetables, including one with dried carrots, since it looked like a rabbit and might have rabbit tastes. I laid everything out at a safe distance. What do you like? Take whatever you want. It sniffed each item and shook its head every time. None of them? Did it want fresh carrots? I didn't have any. Then it stepped forward and pointed at the shelter door. I jumped back on guard. But it just pressed itself against the door crack and made an exaggerated sniffing motion, then licked its little pink tongue with a look of pure ecstasy and pointed inside. It clicked. You smelled something cooking inside? You want whatever that was? Chi-Si-Chi. Frantic nodding. I relaxed a little and thought back through everything I'd cooked recently. Bread, already rejected. Blanched seafood. Beef noodles. Lobster porridge. Wait here. I'll make each one, and you can tell me which. While I cooked, the little creature sat outside my closed door, paws tucked in, waiting patiently. A tiny white puffball in the snow. It looked pitiful. I almost invited it inside. Almost. But I remembered you. This palm-sized fluffball had more combat power than me. In the tight space of my shelter, I couldn't use my bow or swing my axe. It would have every advantage. I made a small pot of seafood medley first, the exact same mantis shrimp and sea snails from a few days ago, with the same dipping sauce. I even peeled a shrimp, dipped it, and carefully held it up to its mouth, one hand feeding, and the other ready to fight. It sniffed without even licking. Head shake. Not this one? Hold on. I tossed the shrimp in my own mouth, ate the rest of the seafood, and went back inside. This time I made a small bowl of beef noodles with the exact same dehydrated vegetables and seasonings as the other night. Before I could even carry it to the door, I heard frantic chirping outside. I didn't need to bring it out to know. The smell had already told the little fluffball everything. It wanted beef noodles.